Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the MMA Archive Recap Show. I'm here with the MMA Wizard. I'll let you introduce yourself to the people. Make sure you give them your handles as well.
So thanks for having me on again. It's Wizz MMA on Twitter. That's with 2 Z's. Only Twitter for now. Looking to build that up before starting to expand into YouTube and Instagram. But super excited to be on recapping last week or yesterday's fights now. It's Sunday right now, so let's get right to it.
Hell
Really
yeah.
fun card.
Hell yeah, man. So you guys could check me out at Negron MMA on Twitter, as well as Chris Negron _. Most importantly, check out the brand OTS Media Co. on all platforms, as well as OTS Media on YouTube. We've got MMA content out the wazoo. I do almost 3 shows a week, baby, where I'm talking about MMA in some capacity. So make sure you check that out. And then we do basketball coverage, NFL coverage. We got everything you need. So come check it out. If you're interested in more betting advice, we got that on all our shows as well. So anyway, we'll move on from that. Awesome night of fights yesterday. Like, I'm buzzing, as the people in Britain would say. We could jump right into it. I just quickly want to say, everyone talks shit. Chat shit, get hit. If you were one of those people saying, "Oh, this is a trash card. There's not a lot of names. They're hyping up Patty Pimblett." Hey, that's still true. But this card fucking delivered in a way that honestly I don't remember. Like, this was historic shit. Like, I don't remember a card. Um, the last sort of card that came to mind when I was thinking of this one was the Rockhold Bisping card, not 2-1, way back then, and that was also a fight night card that just had a whole bunch of crazy finishes, and that's what this one felt like. Like, this was awesome from start to finish. Even the fights that went to decision were great, so I'm itching to get into it with you, man.
Super excited, and especially after the performance yesterday. Insane results. So I couldn't be happier. Going 9-1 on the bets, plus 8.44 units on the night. So yeah, pretty happy. Only
Dude,
lost the one.
that is amazing numbers. Like, dude, I swear to God, I was gonna have you on this week anyway. It had nothing to do with the bets, but when I saw that, I was like, yeah, you better rub your own back on that, because that's amazing numbers for no matter the size of the account, no matter the size of the unit. That's dope. The fact that you were able to get that many wins off. But we'll get into them as we sort of go along the card. Please share those numbers while we get through it.
Of course.
But first fight up on the card, we had Corey Mckenna coming up against Elise Reed. This was a
It was
fight that
actually the Mokaev fight, not to interrupt you.
ooh, no, I needed that. I needed that. Thank you. I don't know why I jumped right to it.
You're
Let me
too
see.
excited.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. No, it's because on the old bout order, it
Yeah,
was
you're right.
listed. That's my bad. That's my bad, though. You're right. The ultimate pro here. You love it. Thank you. But the first fight of the night, Muhammad Mokaev coming up against Cody Durden. Please just give us the recap and give us your thoughts, man.
All right, so you have Mokaev coming in here with probably the largest amateur record that we've ever seen in a prospect, going undefeated. I believe it was 23 fights, if I'm not mistaken, or 26. It's one or the other. But the man's undefeated. One of the youngest fighters in the UFC, if not the youngest, actually, at 21 years old. And he said himself, he's looking to get a hold of that record book. He's looking to take out John Jones's name from that record book as the youngest champion. And you know what? Yesterday he came out and he showed that he might be capable of doing that. Now, given that Durden is not the biggest competition, but it's his toughest test to date. Came out in the first round, very confident, moving around. Durden was pressuring him, which was surprising to me, but got that flying knee in straight into the choke. Showed some really high level grappling from Mokaev, and ultimately led to the submission tap in round 1. And Mokaev was one of the pieces in only one of my parlays, just because A, it's his debut, and then B, just too young for me to place him in anymore, given that he hasn't faced UFC level competition yet. But man, was I wrong. I wish I had him in every single parlay, every single play. Just I couldn't have been more wrong on the confidence side of things there, but very well fought and very good effort from him. Very excited to see him in the future.
Dude, I don't blame you at all for having those feelings. Obviously, we didn't have a baseline to sort of go off of, and in general, when the hype trains come along, it's easy to be skeptical, especially when you're putting money on the line. So I don't blame you at all for having that read. But what blew me away about this one was obviously it finished in 50 seconds. So great. He looked like a plus 500 favorite out there or higher. Like that, he cashed in a big way. But what really blew me away on this one was like the way that knee landed, the awareness, because he was immediately on him. I think if he followed up with punches, it would have been over as well. Like he didn't have
Mm-hmm.
to get a choke. That's just how big of a shot it was. But man, like the angle that he got that choke at freaked me out. Like I was watching it, and usually when people are like sort of what's the word, perpendicular like that, it's hard to finish chokes because you're sort of at an odd angle with your opponent. Usually you want to have them underneath you, especially for the guillotine to get that right leverage
Mm-hmm.
when you're scrambling like that. But yo, the way he was able to lock it up, and he turned his hand, like you saw, it wasn't just like he wrapped it up and held on. He turned his, there was a real grip adjustment to continue to squeeze on that side. Choke awareness is a huge thing, and I'm not trying to knock anyone because people talk shit about Poirier's guillotine. I think Poirier has one of the best guillotines in MMA, but he hasn't got a guillotine yet, so everyone's
Yeah.
quick to talk shit about his guillotines. But I think in a similar way, he adjusted that guillotine beautifully for the spot he was in, and obviously Cody Durden was in a bad way anyway, so it probably came a little bit easier. But I was just super impressed by that. Like you could tell his grip strength is very very strong to be able to secure a choke against a wrestler from a position like that.
Yeah, and then just you gotta admire the story behind this kid. And no disrespect in me calling him kid, he's just younger than me by 2 years. So I feel like I have the authority. But no, you couldn't feel any happier for him. He came through a very rough upbringing. Before the fight even happened, I was watching this YouTube documentary about him, and then just fleeing Dagestan with his dad after his mom passed away, with only 300 British pounds, made it all the way to Liverpool, and then he moved to Wigan, just trying to help his dad out, make money so that he doesn't have to work as hard. Gotta admire it. I love stories like that.
Dude, thank you for that because I had no idea. The way I knew him was through his sort of amateur pedigree, as well as his run on Brave. Like I love watching Brave. They're one of the best shows around, if you ask me. And the dominance that was on point there. So I knew to an extent that he was deserving of the hype. But I agree. I think Cody Durden is, even though I hate to admit it, a lot better than people give him credit for. Even
Mm-hmm.
before this fight, like I feel like a lot of people sleep on how good he is, because he's very hittable on the feet. The cardio and the wrestling put together, like that's a hard guy to fight for anyone in that division. And dude made it look easy. So I honestly, listen, man, IMMAF, that's how they pronounce it, dude. Like I don't watch IMF as like a fan, but now I'm starting to think like maybe I should really start following this because down the line, the something that I love more than anything is sort of being there through someone's run, like being able to
Mm-hmm.
identify them as someone that's on that level and then see it happen over time. Like I love those storylines in MMA, and I've been there since Brave, and I got to tell you, man, I think he has a real shot at trying to achieve that John Jones record, man. I think it's going to be hard, especially in this division. But if he stays active and gets the right fights, I think he could contend for a title in that time, which would be crazy.
100%. 100%. I mean, kind of a slight disagreement there in that division, just because I feel like 125 is pretty wide open, just because there hasn't been that many high level contenders coming out of 125. I mean, at a point they were about to cut the division, and then out of nowhere he comes in and just mops the floor with Durden. So you couldn't have asked for a better debut from him. And yeah, props to him. He's probably like 2 or 3 fights away from a top 5 fight, and then possibly a title shot there. He has about 370 days to break the record. So let's see his game plan there, and let's see how quick he gets booked his second fight.
Yes, sure. It's definitely possible. They got to get him booked on something within the next month, and I think if he's serious about getting that they'll definitely make that happen. But moving on, the fight that I was so eager to get discussion about, Corey Mckenna versus Elise Reed. I didn't tell you this ever. I mean, why would I? But I'm a quarter British from my mother's side, and my family from there is from Wales. So whenever I see a fighter from Wales, I'm immediately sort of hype about them. In this matchup, obviously, she ended up coming short against Elise Reed. I thought it was an awesome fight, man. I thought both girls really showed a level to their game that we didn't really know was there. I think with Mckenna, even though she did come short in a lot of those exchanges, um, I thought, man, like she looked marketably better than she has in previous fights in the stand-up department. Obviously, there's a little bit of a length disadvantage for her at any sort of division in the UFC, I would argue. I think she has really short arms in general. But striking wise, you see she's working on these things. And I personally thought she won the fight. That might be me letting my bias show through. I had her winning round one and round three. But I could see the arguments for, obviously Elise Reed won, so I could see the arguments. For me, I just was impressed by both ladies. I think no matter who won, it was one of those fights where you came away sort of high on both these ladies. I think they're really showed the level of women's MMA and the growth that women's MMA has been sort of going through. The fact that now we're getting prelim fighters that we don't really know too well, that are delivering big, man, in fun fights and really showing their technical growth.
Couldn't agree with you more on that last part. It's evolved, and women's MMA has evolved just to a level where it competes with the numbers of men's MMA. Just quite frankly, these fights and fighters themselves have evolved into what we see today, what we see with Amanda Nunes, with the likes of Juliana Pena. Valentina always been on the top. But just the amount of skill these girls are developing over this short period of time, and adjusting their styles, being able to be versatile like that is going to go a long way. And I mean, in this fight, a lot of people just thought Mckenna had one thing to do, and it's good. It would be really hard for her to mess up. And in MMA Twitter, there's this this line that everyone says, "Understood the assignment," and I don't think Mckenna understood the assignment. For her, her easiest path to victory was her clear grappling advantage over Elise Reed. And just given how Reed lost her last fight to Sajara Eubanks in that first round, she immediately just got clobbered down to the floor and vicious ground and pound, which we had Sajara Eubanks, by the way. Slight plug. And people just thought Mckenna was going to go ahead and do the same thing, impose her grappling, and drag the fight to a decision. But in round one and round two, she just barely grappled. She didn't even try. I mean, in round one, she got her to the floor towards the end of the round, but Reed looked too good on the feet. And in round two, same thing. Reed just looked a step ahead in the striking department. Round three is exactly how I thought the whole fight would go for Mckenna, where she took her down multiple times, decent ground and pound, just holding her there. But she just fell short, and I scored it to Reed 29-28.
Great points, man. I agree 100%. I think something that a lot of people don't pay attention to is the corner work. I know a lot of people don't listen with the audio when they're watching the fights live, which I understand. But shout out to Danny Castillo, man. Not a lot of people know who he is if you're new to MMA. This is an OG, man. This is someone that got a win over Tony Ferguson in the UFC and has really grown as a coach. Like initially, there would be some times where we'll see him in the corner of some fighters, and there'll be some, let me say it as plainly as I can, some awful sort of takes, and the way he was saying the advice doesn't really come across, at least in past fights. And in this fight, I think he really showed that he's growing and that he's committed to this role. I think he gave her great advice, urging her to sort of close that distance early. This was in between the first and the second, so before she even was able to implement it, really giving her concise advice, pointing her in the right direction. I thought he really showed a lot of improvement on that end. So I think she's in good hands at Alpha Male. I think the growth is going to continue in a good way for her. I think even though she lost, you come away feeling good. In my opinion, I don't know how, I can't speak for her, but you should come away feeling really good about your performance because you showed areas where you wanted to improve on. But let's talk about Elise Reed, man. I, dude, I just wanted to say the level of the striking, like the level of the striking was really awesome. Like I think a lot of the straight punches, with all due respect, that's hard to find in women's MMA, even still today. And technique that holds up throughout the entire fight. I thought she looked great and really, really good at keeping the distance where she's super aggressive. So she wants to be in the face of her opponents, but getting right on that edge of her range. I think she's really good at finding that spot. So watch out for Elise Reed, man. I think if she's persistent about fixing up those holes in her ground game, I think she could be really good in this division.
100%. 100%.
I
And
love
on to Jack Shore and Timur Valiev. What a fight. What a
dude.
fight.
I just want to say real quick, I want to give you the floor for this one. I just want to say me and you were on this one. We knew I was hitting you up before. We were talking during the fight. I'm like, this is one of the best fights on the card, and man, it
Uh-huh.
delivered.
100%. Yeah, we were talking about it, going back and forth on Twitter, mentioning each other. We knew it. We understood the assignment. So Jack Shore and Timur Valiev put on an absolute show of a fight. Very equal, very back and forth until that third round, obviously. But round one, Jack Shore comes out a little bit more cautious versus Valiev came out just trying to pour on some volume in all aspects, leg kicks, body kicks, the punches, straight punches, almost, he had a takedown as well. One thing that frustrated me with Jack Shore in that first round was he was throwing this straight kick to the body naked. Like he wasn't masking it with like a punch or a feint, which Valiev you would see, and later in round one he'd pick up on it and he would grab that leg of Shore, which ultimately led to that takedown in round one. So for round one, I had the score 10-9 to Valiev. Going into round two, you see Shore imposing a little bit more on Valiev, throwing a lot more output than he did in round one. And they both got a takedown of their own, but Valiev a little bit more impressive on the floor just because he reversed Shore's takedown and flipped it on himself, got his own takedown and gained some top control there. At that point, I scored it 20-18 for Valiev after two. And I was sweating for a little bit because I had Jack Shore. But then he comes out in the third round and knocks Valiev down twice. As you can see, Valiev noticeably tired, a little gassed maybe, and just on the feet. Jack Shore still looked like he was 100% and imposed his will. Maybe some judges scored it as a 10-8 round, who knows? And ultimately led to the decision for Jack Shore. And yeah, couldn't be happier with the outcome of that fight. From a betting standpoint, from a viewing standpoint, loved it. Loved it. No more to say there.
Was it a straight play for you, or was it just a parlay play?
It was a straight play for me.
Nice, awesome. Awesome. So yeah, on your wins, dude, please give us the numbers on that. I don't know if I missed it or not,
So
but
Jack Shore, it was a 2.2 unit bet, and I had him to win 2 units. So you got him at minus
nice.
110.
Dude, yeah. I know you were sweating though during that second round. I personally scored that round to Jack Shore. But the Welsh bias is in me. I will admit it. I one thing I was blown away with. I don't care that I tweeted it. I'm gonna talk about it again here on the show. Something that he did in that second round that was so crazy. I immediately was like, "Give me the fight!" Like I didn't even care that the fight was still on. I'm like, "This was fucking crazy." Um, Jack Shore grabbed into an upper body clinch from bottom full guard. Uh, and literally, I still like I'm watching this shit, and when I go back to training, like I want to, not that I want to try it, but I want to see if this is something that is can be in my wheelhouse someday, just because it's going to reaffirm just how difficult it is to pull off a stand up like that, obviously against someone that has high quality top game. um it just takes such an immense amount of strength, and you see moves like that often in bigger weight classes like heavyweight and things like that, where they're just like one last deadlift, and it expends a lot of energy and really can take a toll on them for the rest of the fight. And that didn't happen at all for Jack Shore. I thought what really, I don't know where to put my hand on this, because obviously Timur has been successful very often in his UFC fights in the first round, but then ends up sort of having some issues on the feet as the fight progresses in multiple fights now. We've seen him get dropped, I think, in every one of his UFC appearances, which I don't think it's a chin issue. Like that dude could take some shots too. It's just a matter of I don't know. I don't know. I can't really put my finger on it. It might be a cardio thing, like a mental cardio thing. I don't know what it is. I'm really interested to see how that plays out for the rest of his career. But I was really impressed by Jack Shore's ability to have some trouble, like you said in the first, and stay steady, but even pick up his level in that third round. Like he had another gear, and who knows, man, maybe his home crowd did affect him a little bit, because you hear it all the time, you know, that adrenaline dump is real. But man, if you ask me, that didn't come across in the fight. Like even in that first round, it was close as fuck, and it only came down to those sort of minute aspects that really made the difference until that third round. I think someone did actually score it 10-8 then third round for Jack Shore, because one of the final scorecards was 29-27. So that's the
Uh-huh.
only one that makes sense. I personally had it 2-1 for Jack Shore watching it. But when, like you said, when you're betting on somebody and you want them, obviously you're fiending for them to win, but you see them have their biggest round in the third round, like that's one of the best feelings that you could have. So,
Oh yeah.
uh,
It's so relieving in a sense, because all the worries of gas tank or will to win are completely out of the door.
yeah, man. So awesome, awesome fight. But we can move on from that one, just so that we keep the pace up here. But even after this fight, like I thought the momentum was tangible. Like I'm like all
Mhm.
these fights so far have really delivered in a fun way, and now we get even
Here's where
more of
we
it.
start seeing them all the
Yep.
finishes.
Yes, sir. So why don't you tee us up? What was next up?
All right, so next up we have Nikita Krylov against Paul Craig. Now, this fight, what do you even say about this? Craig was this close to getting finished on the floor, and him just being willing to put himself in that kind of danger, trusting himself and trusting his Brazilian jiu-jitsu, uh, his high level Brazilian jiu-jitsu, I want to say, is just crazy. It's crazy. And to me, at this point, it's Paul Craig's submission should be an auto bet at this point. And we saw it. He was so close to getting put out, and somehow he just pulls off that quick triangle and gets Krylov to instantly tap. And it wasn't one of those taps where it took a while. He got it locked in this quick to where it was so deep that Krylov had to tap immediately. And we saw the same thing in the Ankalaev fight. We saw the same thing against Jamal Hill with the armbar. It's just like, really? This guy is that good. And I did not have anything on this fight just because I like both sides. I really was, I wanted to put Paul Craig's submission somewhere on my card, but I just didn't have the will to. And sometimes as MMA handicappers, you have to know where your spots are. And this was definitely my spot, but I just did not take advantage of it.
Dude, I was gonna say that shout out to you on making that read, because I honestly I think it's very rare that an underdog cashes that you're like, I see why they're an underdog. Because dude, like I thought multiple times he got hit where it looked like he was out. Like it looked like he was in a real bad way. And I think a lot of that was instincts. Like I think there was actually a punch that woke him up, that
Yeah.
allowed him to sort of come back into the fray. Crazy. I just want to say, for the long term of his career, this is something that happens often. And I think it's such a dangerous spot to be in, because you can't tell a guy that has a submission game like this, get up, like stop playing on off of your back. But man, it's like multiple fights now, even in the fights that he's lost, he's had trouble in that same position. So it's kind of like a crapshoot. Like, is he going to be able to pull out something out of his hat, or are you going to take a brutal beating? And I'm going to be real, at 205, that's a tough style to have, especially for career longevity.
Very tough. And I will, here's one thing, I will never bet on Paul Craig as a favorite, just for that simple factor. Krylov came out and just dominated and took him to the floor. And to me, what I didn't understand was, did he not expect this? Because if I was Krylov in a fight against someone with such high caliber jiu-jitsu like Paul Craig has, I would just step aside, tell him to stand up, because you know he can't match you on the feet. He wants that. He wants to put himself in that kind of danger just so he can sub you, and he can't sub you on the feet unless he's just like on your back with a freaking rear naked choke. But other than that, it's just going to be all striking. How do you even come up with the idea of going to the floor with Paul Craig? That's just what
That is
was my.
such a good point, bro. And I just wanted to say, I'm sorry to cut you off. I can't, in a way, I can't be mad at him though, because right before that happened, Paul Craig actually landed a up kick, and the punch that got him in trouble was he dove in on a right hand because he was pissed that he landed the front kick, the up kick, and then immediately got wrapped up from it. So it was kind of like a fuck you moment, and he was responding to a
Yeah.
strike, and that's why he dove in. But man, I agree with you. Like you gotta have the spatial awareness when you're in those spots to say, fuck it, I'll recover. Because even though I feel like it's a little underrated, Paul Craig's striking game, that is, I think it's a little closer on the feet than most people would think in that matchup. But after you already beat the shit out of him for over 2 minutes, I think that's a good call. Like you already put in enough work where even that deficit is now closed. Like regardless of whether or not there is a sort of some skills he has on the feet that could present a problem for Krylov, you would think once dealing with punches like that, that diminishes a little bit. So I agree, man. But such a hard thing to do in the moment, I would imagine. And man, the way, like you said, the quickness at which he tapped. This is twice now where we're in scenarios where, like, man, if you could have waited a little bit longer. I mean, it wasn't close to the end of the round, but dude, I think it's just credit to his ability to lock that up. And real quick, for people who are interested in working on your submission game, pay attention to that angle that he cuts, because he does it all the time, man. And it's beautiful. And you know it's in right when you see that, because the first step is getting the leg up. But when you cut the angle and follow the leg, that's when you know you got it. So good stuff there.
Pay close attention to those who want to improve their submission game and their triangle game. Pay close attention to Paul's right leg and how quick he wraps it over behind his neck. because I've very rarely seen speed like that when trying to wrap a leg over the guy's body, especially at 205. Like, really? Oh, it's so good. Like, the outcome of the fight was just so nice, but also it's just like this. I don't want to disrespect the guy by saying stupidity, but stupidity, for lack of better words, of Krylov to keep going at that point. It annoys me. I could understand how Krylov bettors are just punching themselves in the mouth for that, because no one would have, I mean, people expected it, but no one really thought Krylov would continue to engage in ground game with Paul Craig. Sorry about that.
You're good, and that's such a great shout, man. I agree. I think what bugs me out real quick. I just want to give a shout out, Bernardo Faria. Angles make strangles, and that's where I got that from. That was something I love, sort of thinking about the deeper parts of jujitsu in that way. And man, Paul Craig is someone that gets me excited. I think moving forward, someone to watch out for in this division, because even if he's outmatched, there's always something apparently, and he's shown us that. So. So what was next up? I'm sorry. I want to make sure I got the order right for these fights.
I got you. I have the order right up in front of me. So next fight on the card was Pavlovic against Abdulrahima. And this one, I think it just went accordingly to how everyone thought it was going to go. And Pavlovic with via round 1 KO. I had Pavlovic in one of my parlays. Now, initially, when I first looked at the fight, I was like, maybe Abdulrahima shouldn't be that big of an underdog. But I see why. After watching the tape, Pavlovic has finished almost all of his fights in the first round via KO in similar manner. And I tweeted this out. That straight uppercut, I don't know, whatever that was, is beautiful. Once that landed, that was the beginning of the end for Abdulrahima, and Pavlovic just pounced.
Yeah, man. I thought that was a good stoppage. I heard a lot of people complaining about it. I thought he got dropped bad. And I agree. I think the extension on that punch is what makes it so special. Like, it's crazy because he doesn't throw it all the time. He throws uppercuts and then he throws that punch, and they're different punches. Let me be clear about that. Man, I agree. That step through uppercut is beautiful. I actually, when I was breaking down this fight last week, my main takeaway was this is a 2 true outcome fight. Like, either we're getting a knockout in the first, or Abdulrahimov is gonna grapple the shit out of him in the second and third. And we saw one of those options play out. I think if they fought 100 times, I'm still confident in saying about 45 of those times Shamil's able to survive. So that's what makes me think. I agree. It should have been closer a little bit on the line. But Sergey Pavlovich is interesting, man. I think he's someone that could really grow in this division. He's young for heavyweight, at 33 years old, right? I think so. He's got a lot of room to grow. I think there's not many wrestling tests in this division. So let me get that clear. But as far as prospects go, keep this guy as far away from Sergey Spivak as you can. Like, let him have the striker's route through the division like Ty had, and we'll see some good success for Sergey Pavlovich.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. A great way to to highlight that, because we've often seen these heavyweights when they come up against the grappler, kind of like the Curtis Blades, which we have next week, they fail miserably. Just kind of hinting at what I think is going to happen next week too.
Yeah, man. You love a little tease. But we'll move on from this one. What was the next one up?
Next fight is Grundy versus Amir Connie, which I feel like was the biggest betting disappointment for MMA Twitter.
For sure. Did you have any money on that one?
Unfortunately, I did on Grundy.
Oh, man. Yeah. So you were hurting after this one.
Yeah.
Man, I'm not going to lie. Oh, sorry about that. Go ahead.
You're good. This was the only loss that I had on the bet slip over UFC London. And you know what? Maybe the emotional side of things kind of misled me a little bit. And also, I mean, you can't look at Amir Connie's past couple fights and not agree to fade him. the no gas tank after round one, the questionable fight IQ, and that combined with Grundy's dad watching him in the crowd, who is terminally ill. Prayers up to him. I kind of thought that Grundy would have a little more motivation, but he kind of let that emotional side get the most of him because he just immediately blitzed Amir Connie at his own game, and he paid for it. So yeah,
Dude.
tough one to take there.
I was gonna say, I don't feel too down about yourself on this one, because if there was a route for victory for Amir Connie, this was it. Like, once again, if we did this fight 100 times, I think that only happens in the 10 times he'll be able to get a submission like that early. I don't know, man. I really feel like this matchup was tough, and both of these guys were in a bad spot. But what I find so interesting about their dynamic, like the fact that they were matched up obviously off of multiple losses, is like, I think Mike Grundy has shown more in those losses than Amir Connie has. So that I agree. I feel like you shouldn't feel bad about making that read. I think it was a good read. But sometimes good reads end up getting sent to hell by good performances. And I thought Amir Connie, man, he's dangerous to do that against anyone. We've seen it in his career. He does similar things in the grappling department in the first round. So stay away from that guy in the first round. Keep it on the feet, because I thought that was Grundy's path to success anyway. So super
Yeah,
surprising outcome.
yeah, I'm still in the business of fading Amir Connie always. So
Yeah, yeah, man.
nothing.
Hey, next time he might be a favorite because of this. So hey, he adds to the
I hope
bankroll.
so.
Yes, sir. So we can move on. Yeah. Once again, prayers up to his father. But
Prayers up.
what was the next fight up?
So we have the probably one of my favorite fights that I was looking forward to in the, well, not even the morning my time. It's Ilia Tuporia against Jai Herbert. Ilia Tapuria moving up a weight class on short notice to take on this fight. Never fought a fight at 155 in his life. He's always been fighting at 145 pounds at featherweight. And the reach advantage for Jai Herbert was huge. So I was very excited to see how that was going to play out. I didn't see anyone fading Tapuria, but I saw a lot of people that talked about wanting to. And you know what? This could have been the spot. Hindsight is 2020, obviously, now that the fight has already happened. But what we saw out of Jai Herbert, and man, all credit to Jai Herbert. He has faced no one but killers ever since he stepped foot into the UFC. And this one, it's heartbreaking for him, and I feel for him on this one because round one, with a striking performance against Tuporia like that, I mean, yeah, like I mentioned, the reach advantage was crazy, so maybe a little bit expected. But someone touted as a future champ like Tapuria, who holds himself confident, holds himself as if he's already a champion, getting pieced up like that in the first couple minutes, and then that kick that knocked Tapuria down, I thought the fight was over. Tapuria looked dazed. But fight IQ, I cannot stress that enough. Immediately grabbed his leg, took him down, survived. And to tell you the least about how I was feeling in this moment, because I had Tuporia in two of my biggest parlays, I was you could see the breath taken out of my body, and my brothers were looking at me. They're like, "What is going on?" Because I obviously they look towards me for their betting, and I'm like, "Just hold on, the fight's not over." And he came out in that second round and gave him that 3-piece to the head, to the body, back to the head. And we've seen that with not Malcolm Gordon's last fight, but sorry, not Malcolm Gordon. I'm getting him mixed up with Miles John's last fight. Yeah, Miles John's last fight, similar manner, to the head, to the body, back to the head. And it worked out. Clean KO, folded him.
Dude, I think this is already on the short list of comeback of the year. Like this was an
Oh
insane
yeah.
fight. And I just wanted to say something that I find interesting is I haven't heard anyone asking Topuria if he's moving to lightweight for good. I tend to think he is with the way he sort of called out Paddy Pimblett after this, obviously with the whole beef that they have. But real quick, do you know anything about that?
I didn't see anyone saying that or him saying that. I don't think it would be in his best interest to do that either.
To go
He's
back
too
to
small.
145?
Yeah. Oh, going back to 145, I
Exactly.
misheard. Yeah, going back to 145 is what he will ultimately do. I think maybe he fights Pimblett if that actually formulates at 155, just as a grudge match for what happened and for all of them like talking shit. But
Hmm.
in his best interest, he wants to move back down
For
because
sure.
clearly we saw against Jai Herbert, who, no disrespect, good fighter, but he's not in that elite caliber, when elite class, when we talk about the 155 division,
Hmm.
and he almost got sent away
Dude,
immediately.
in a big way. And I agree with you 100%. I think as someone who has a journalism degree, I just can't help but wonder why the fuck nobody asked him about that. Like, why are you fighting 155? What's your plan moving forward? I didn't hear anything about that. Really interested to find out what happens with that because I agree, but I don't even think um his issues were necessarily a length problem. I think I think listen, I'm very high on Ilia Tapuria. I'm gonna say that right off right, but we got to talk about what happened in that first exchange.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look it back, it was a hook that he was throwing that left him fully exposed for that high kick. I mean, like let me get this clear as well for someone who's trained. I know you will agree with this. To counter a hook with a high kick is a very difficult thing to do. Like it's crazy. So I think if Topuria really takes a step back and looks at this performance, what I would try to say is really implement a jab, because if he adds a jab to the hooks that he has already, they're devastating. And staying patient behind it, like I feel like of course any sort of size deficit like that makes things like that more likely to happen. But I think if he really hones down on that jab and entering in on it, he's usually shorter than the guys he's facing anyway, and he hasn't really shown issues with that yet. But man, awesome performance. Real quick, I got to give a shout out to his grappling as well. The way that he slides into side control, like e- people always say this: high hips win. You need to have high hips, and if you're in a position like that, the way that he's able to drive his weight and just slither through positions, um, that's not common, folks. That's high level stuff.
Mm-hmm. 100%. And go me when I was in training last week, I was going against someone much smaller than me, and yeah, similar ability, just high hips. That smaller frame aids them in doing that as well. Just given that he's 5'7", going against someone who is 6'1", I believe, Jai Herbert. Yeah, it gives them that advantage. And then also we've known Tuporia to have that kind of grappling expertise. So I'm glad he was able to clinch the win, not for just for my sake, but for his own sake. And I feel like he needed a fight like this just to kind of wake him up. Maybe he was in a little bit of a euphoric state. Uh, he kind of does show off a little bit, so gotta get humbled at some point. But this kind of woke me up a little bit. Might be in the business of fading Tuporia against lengthier fighters like this in the future. So we'll see.
That's a good shout, 100%. And I just want to say, second time in the UFC now that we've seen Herbert go out in a bad way. I want to say, hopefully he gets some good time off before his next fight to really recover from that.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you see people fall like that and stiffen up like that's someone that's more susceptible to getting knocked out in that way again, just because I'm not going to get into the whole physiology, but when you've been shut down, it's your body's quicker to shut down. So I hope that he's able to take some more time in between fights to sort of regroup. But awesome performance for both guys. Like even in a fight where you end up losing, You can't hate on that performance from Jai Herbert. Really almost came away with the win big in that one. So let's move
Yeah.
on. What do we got? What do we have up next?
Oh, possibly a contender for knockout of the year. Molly McCann versus Luana Carolina. Oh my God. Just cutting corners here. How about that knockout? Because I did not see that coming. I did not at all.
Dude, the momentum was in Luana's favor. If you're asking
Yeah.
me, I picked her, so I was feeling myself. I was like, let's go. Obviously, I didn't bet, but I'm like, I knew to a certain extent that her length and her activity on the feet would give Molly some problems. But man, you could tell that was something that she trained. You could tell that was something that she was looking to land as well. And man, like the way that she fell, she was looking. Yeah, I was about to say she was looking like the Jesus statue out in Brazil. Man, she crazy the way that she got, and her eyes were wide open, Undertaker style. That was a scary knockout as well. Please give her a time off so she could come back.
Mhm.
But another performance where you can't hang your head, man. She put in work coming back from a very tough first round, and honestly I thought came away handily with the second round and was looking good up until that moment. So tough result, but I love Meatball Molly, dude. That accent, her screaming, "Come on!" when she's walking out, like I
Mhm.
love her, and feels good to see her finally get the win in the UK because obviously she lost previously to Jillian Robertson at home.
Yeah, see, here's the thing with how I broke this fight down. Very similar fight to the fight Molly McCann had against Jeon Kim. Jeon Kim has longer reach than Luana Carolina, and Molly dealt with it just fine. So going into this fight, I initially picked Molly. I did not have a bet on her. I wanted to, but too many question marks. She clearly clearly won round one. I believe she won round two as well, just with the grappling. So in my head, Carolina needed a finish in round three to win, or else she was on her way to a decision loss unanimously. And as we've seen, similar to that Jeon Kim fight, she dealt with that length very well. Luana not known to throw that much volume, but that third round was very impressive to start. She was feeling herself, she was in her motion, in her groove, and she was throwing, she was winning the round until that miraculous spinning elbow. I'm still just speechless out of that because I'm pretty sure I held my head for 5 minutes straight, just looking at that knockout over and over and over again. You don't see the white eyes like the Undertaker eyes in the UFC after a knockout like that. I don't think I've ever seen that happen. And just for it to happen, not just in the UFC, but in a women's fight, which we don't see as many knockouts either, astonishing, astonishing way to finish it.
Dude, and just to give the people a sense of the momentum of this card, we got two of those back to back. Jai Herbert had the same exact thing. So insane, like moment in the card. Like I looked at the rest of the card, I'm like, holy shit, we still got like four fights. Like, what the fuck? Like, this is crazy. Like the momentum was insane at this point of the event. So it only made the next fights even better. So what do we have up next?
So up next we have Gunnar Nelson and Takashi Sato.
Yeah, man.
So
So coming off of two huge knockouts like this, I think it was appropriate that we got a moment to breathe. We got a moment to collect ourselves here. Now, I'm gonna be honest with you. I was this close to putting a bet on Takashi Sato because I thought that the line was a little larger than it deserved to be. Now, let me make this clear. I forgot to mention this earlier, but my strategy for betting this week was I did big straight plays on two favorites, Tom Aspinall and on who was the second one? It was towards the end of the event as well. And Arnold Allen, yes. So those were my big plays, and then I did a huge parlay that I put more money into than I ever do, and it was dumb, and I won't do it again. But the reason why it fell short was, and obviously I put Gunnar Nelson in this parlay, and I put Ilia Tuporia in this parlay, but I decided let me hedge on these guys just so that I can make some money back if there's a random thing and it breaks my parlay. And in this fight, I thought I'm so glad I didn't do nothing crazy as far as putting money on Takashi Sato because it kind of played out the way the line thought it would. Super impressed by Gunnar Nelson. I think he takes damage in a way that the dominant nature of his victories kind of we tend to forget. I think at this stage of the career of his career, they need to keep giving him matchups like this because I think the closer the deficit is on the feet and in the grappling, I think that's when he has issues, especially later on in fights. We saw that in the Leon Edwards fight. Everything was super close until things started getting dirty, got into the later rounds, and now he gets dropped. I think that trend is going to continue in his career. But I really like the things he does. Like he's a weird guy. He's not a traditional MMA fighter and all, his back control was something to watch in this fight.
Now, here's one thing that I can say with full confidence. Round 1 through round 3 looked exactly identical.
Mm-hmm.
The same exact fight, same exact round. Takashi Sato pressuring Nelson. Nelson with his wide stance, very similar to Conor McGregor's stance coming out of SBG Ireland. I'm not surprised. Wide karate stance, which also aids in those quick little like straight punches that he does from the back foot. Yeah, Gunnar Nelson looked like he was a minus 800 to me after watching the fight. It was just stylistic mismatch at its finest. And you know, a lot of MMA Twitter bettors and handicappers were very upset because it seemed like almost everyone had Nelson by sub. And to be honest, I was about to do it too. I'm not sure why I didn't. I think I just forgot before the fight started. I'm glad I forgot, to say the least. But Gunnar Nelson just, I mean, what can you say? He got him on his back all 3 rounds. And the only reason he didn't sub him is because Takashi Sato was just so focused on holding one of his arms. So Gunnar's just like slapping him left and right with the other until the round's over and repeat and repeat and repeat. So very, very clear path to victory that I saw from the tape is just the grappling side. Once he got that grapple in, he's done. Mm-hmm. And it showed. It showed big time. Like grappling made him that minus 800, minus 900 in my eyes. So props to Nelson. Takashi Sato, I don't think he belongs in the UFC just yet. He needs some more fights at the regional scene to gain that experience. He probably threw like 10 or 15 punches throughout the whole fight. So just clear winner there.
Yeah, man, 100%. And real quick, just want to give a shout out to John Gooden because I just love hearing him talk. And during this fight, he was like, Gunnar Nelson has been practicing against volcanic rock. Like, technically, all rocks are volcanic rocks, if we're being real here. But that was hilarious to me.
Yeah,
like
that was hilarious.
I don't know why that stood out. That stood out to me. And real quick, I just got to say this while we're on it. I love Bisping as a fighter. I love him as a person. I think I like his podcast. I'm still not too high on him as a commentator. He gets me annoyed more often than I like what he has to say. But I thought this one was funny where he was sort of going back with John Gooden and making fun of him for saying that. So that was fun banter there.
Yeah, there wasn't much to commentate on the fight, so he was just looking for something else to talk about. The feelings you feel towards Bisping is what I feel towards DC as a commentator.
Yep. Both of them have it though. Both of them have it. And I think the commentary team that they picked in this one, we didn't hear Whizzer not once throughout the whole night. There was multiple times where Whizzers were key in what was able to sort of prevent the takedown. So I thought that was hilarious. This was a striking, friendly commentary crew. I'll say that.
Yeah.
But anyway, what do we have next up after that?
We have Paddy Pimblett going against Kazula Vargas.
It's main
And
event time, baby. I
oh
just want to
yeah.
ask you, dude, did you hear after the fight during the Arnold Allen Hooker fight that they were still chanting for Patty?
Oh, Paddy the Baddy. Yeah, even after that
So
fight,
crazy.
they went nuts. And the energy this guy brings, you can't help but say that it reminds you of Conor McGregor. And if he does get big in the sport, if I mean, not saying that he's not already big, but if he actually climbs the rankings, which I might have a slightly different opinion than everyone else, um, he will make a big impact, similar to how Conor did. And he showed out, which, in my opinion, he had to. It's Kazula Vargas. The guy just doesn't hold his hands up when he fights. That's clearly what I saw on the tape. I'm like, this guy can get clipped instantly and just drop to the floor. But hey, props to Vargas. He held him down. He got that takedown in that, well, the first and only round. And a lot of people thought he rocked Paddy and dropped him, but no, it was a slip. Paddy was trying to go for the single leg and failed, which ultimately led him to go onto his back. But good work on Pimblett's side to go ahead and get the butterfly hooks, switch that position on him, get his own takedown, and eventually submit Vargas in that first round, which erupted the O2. Everyone was going crazy, and he was. I mean, you saw what Molly did. She just ran into the cage like it was her own fight. But yeah, props to Pimblett. I'm also in the business of fading Paddy Pimblett at some point in the future. It's just Paddy also doesn't hold his hands up at all. Like if you see in the first exchange or second exchange, there was a clear screenshot of Kazula Vargas just missing an open opportunity with Paddy's chin is just like right here.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's an easy clip. And just from his first fight, he got rocked. He got rocked in his first fight. So I'm interested to see how his future plays out.
I find it so funny that he immediately gets compared to Conor McGregor. I agree with that entirely. Stylistically, they couldn't be different as far as the way that they fight. I think I was really surprised actually that Kazula Vargas, obviously he's a strong guy, and you could tell by his frame that he's a strong guy. But the head control and keeping him up against the fence, I thought he didn't even have to go and change up the position. Really, he could have kept them there, sapped the energy, and it would have been a completely different fight. Like I feel like, and I gave Bisping shit for this because as Kazula Vargas is on top, Bisping is like, well, the longer he stays here, the better it is for Paddy Pimblett. And as soon as he said that, Pimblett gets elbowed in the face, like it really hard. And I'm like, yeah, this is good for him, isn't it? And then it turns out to be. So I can't talk too much shit because ultimately what he said ended up turning out to be true. But I agree with you, man. I think given the right matchup, this dude is an instant fade. I think his on what he has, his package, don't get me wrong, he's a good fighter. He has really good skills on the ground. He even has strong punching. Like it's not technical striking, but he has strong strikes. Let me make that very clear. And I think if that Luigi Vendramini fight showed us anything, it was the fact that um, he's a fighter. Like it doesn't matter if he's a grappler first. That's the sort of rep that he gets because that's where his skills lie. But
Uh-huh.
he's a fighter, and he'll stick in there through thick and thin. So I would say in some matchups, I get why people want to put some money on him because he's going to fight for your money regardless of how it plays out. But man, I I agree with you. He's gonna get knocked out bad in the UFC, and it's only a matter of time if you ask me.
And I feel like it's going to be a vicious knockout, kind of like the Tuporia knockout. It's
Mhm.
going to be something similar because his chin is just so wide open at times. He can't afford to have that, especially at his smaller, lankier frame. That's going to be scary.
Dude,
Hey,
I
we're
just
gonna
gotta say he
gonna
was
have this
caught.
on the internet.
there's a reason why Tuporia called out Patty, and Patty was like, what did he say again? The cliche line, lions don't care about the
Lions
opinion of
don't.
sheep.
Yeah,
Like, bro,
exactly.
you know damn well why you
Oh, he
saying
did.
that, and it has nothing to do with that. It has
He
everything to do with
dodged it.
that matchup, because if you're in Patty's camp, you're like, don't take that fight, dude. Do not take that fight anytime
No,
soon. Crazy,
and
crazy.
he's just happy he landed a freaking sanitizer bottle on his head. Like, really? He will. Tuporia will erase him.
Yeah,
To
I
say the
agree.
least.
If that matchup, I would imagine he would be a plus 200 favorite. But come fight time, the fans of Patty will bump that up. So if that fight does come to play, I think that's more of a later bet than an early bet.
Oh yeah. Kind of similar to the Drew Dober McKinney fight. In
Mhm.
midweek, I'm like, yes, please keep betting Dober down. I need this minus 150 around there, and I got it.
That's a
Even
good
though he
shout.
got knocked.
I was about to say that's a good shout, because I was the other way. I honestly thought Terrence McKinney was gonna win, and I don't feel bad about feeling that way with the way the fight played out. I don't
No,
feel
not at
bad
all.
about it.
Not at all.
But yeah, good, really good shout on that. Next up, dude, this was, in my opinion, we've had some crazy moments on this card. Um, this was the saddest moment of the
Very.
entire night for me. Arnold Allen versus Dan Hooker. Shout out to Arnold Allen. I don't want to disrespect or take away from his performance at all, because I'm going to be talking mostly about Dan Hooker. But I just have to say this, dude. It's clear that this is not the weight class for him, and he knew that in his when he moved up in the first place. The reason why I say that is because it didn't even look like the same guy out there from the last fight. Because people, don't get me wrong, he's someone who gets hit, so that part wasn't surprising. What was surprising was the way he reacted. Like, I feel like um, more so than a lot of fights I can remember lately, like, you could see he wanted to do something and he knew what he had to do, and his body was not responding. Like, I feel like that I saw that very clearly in this matchup.
It was sad to see, man. And I'm a big Dan Hooker fan. I went against him,
Mhm.
but for obvious reasons. He was 3-3 before he moved up to lightweight in the featherweight division. So that's one thing. First fight in featherweight at the featherweight division since 5 years, and then
He got big at lightweight. Like, he's a big lightweight. So
he's a big lightweight. He's very lengthy, which to me, I know this might sound very stupid, but during those weigh-ins, he looked phenomenal. But there's a reason he wore those glasses. There's a reason. Like he probably looked so bloodshot red in his eyes and so tired. He had to hide it just so. I mean, the media doesn't give him shit, or I don't know, UFC officials don't try to say something. But I think that was the reason why he wore those glasses. He looked like Terminator, yeah, sure, but didn't really put on a Terminator performance at all.
Terminator down here, he probably looked like a freaking skeleton up here. That's why. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So going into this fight against someone who's 9-0 at the featherweight division, up and coming, huge prospect. And this is not just because he's English that it's a big fight. Arnold Allen is legit, and he showed it. He really showed it. Now, a lot of people had this argument for Hooker that he had the better strength of schedule, better wins. He's a better striker. He has the length. He trains at City Kickboxing with Israel Adesanya. All valid points. I'm not taking that away from anyone if that was your side. And I definitely saw it too, because I was doubting myself for a little bit when I chose Allen. But after watching the tape, I was just more confident in Allen.
Mhm.
And then you see what happens in the fight. Allen just outclassed him on the feet. Allen looked like he was the fresher fighter since the bell rang, since the doors closed. And just to see, like you were describing, Dan Hooker's lack of defense or lack of ability to defend, in my head, when I saw Allen like pretty much what's just charging forward against Hooker with those hooks left and right, Hooker's defense was down the middle right here. Why isn't he blocking the side of his face? That was one thing that was going through my head. I'm like, what is going on here? Like, why isn't he covering the side when all he's doing is kind of like the Valentina Shevchenko hook, just spam the hook button. But no, I just want to cover the front of my face. And yeah, man, Arnold Allen was just dominant. All over him. And yeah, I got a better number than anyone got probably in the world on Arnold Allen because my bookie made a mistake. I got Arnold Allen at plus 115, which was never a line.
Dude,
my bookie made crazy. A mistake. So I got 2 units on Arnold Allen at plus 115, which cashed. And yeah, very happy with the outcome. Just very sad with how Dan Hooker looked. He should never be at 145, never fight there again.
For sure. And I went bigger. I was 3 units on Allen, and it felt good to get that back.
Oh, yeah.
Because the way I lost on that parlay, I was kicking myself. I actually lost the parlay because of Paul Craig, by the way. It was an 8-legger, and I would have hit on over $400. But sadly, I learned my lesson. I'm no longer going above 3 legs, and I talked to you about this as well, and I still did it. I don't know, you know why the parlays feel good. They help build the account in a big way. But I think something that's surprising about this for me is I think this is a frame issue more than a weight issue, because I would argue him and Allen probably walk around the same weight. Allen is huge. Like, Allen is huge for 145. I'm sure he has a hard time making that cut as well. And you saw it on Fight Night. Like, that dude is bricked up, and he's big for 145. The drawing him into straight counters was beautiful. Like, against someone that's bigger than you, that's tough to do against someone that's shorter than you. And he did it multiple times that ended up hurting Hooker in separate exchanges, because Hooker held on for longer than I think he should have. Like, honestly, I felt like in boxing, that fight would have the towel would have came in, right? Like, I'm not bugging, right? The towel would have came in for sure in boxing. But he's a tough dude. All credit to Hooker. That's why this was so hard for me, because I feel like the fight we got and the fight that sort of we deserved based on the matchup was nowhere near each other. And that's why the lines were where they were. I just really think if Dan Hooker goes back to 145, I'm honestly not interested at all. And I probably will automatically fade him no matter the matchup, because I thought it's not the answer. Like, the people you were losing to at 155 are the upper echelon of the division. You're not going to get cut. Like, he's not going to get cut after this either. I saw people saying, oh, that's probably it. Hell no, because they know the murderer's row they're putting him through. But at the same time, man, health-wise, that just did not look good at all. The characteristics of what make him exciting as a fighter, he didn't get to show those at all, because he was just so rocked constantly. I mean, this is the same guy that went 5 rounds with Dustin Poirier, 5 rounds with Paul Felder. Go back to 155, man. I think your frame at 145, it's not about the full body weight, because everyone at the Performance Institute, they look at the body weight and they're like, yeah, there's some guys that are around the same size as you. No, it's not just about the weight. When you're that big, I just think it does way more of a toll on you than if you're smaller for the weight class.
It took away the chin, just to say the least about it. It took away the chin.
Did it though? Because he was on his feet the whole time. Like, he never fell.
But he froze.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
He froze. He didn't have a response to those punches. Now, like you said very clearly, he will not get cut from the UFC, and Dana White said it himself. He can do whatever he wants. He will not get cut. And same thing with Jai Herbert, just not to backtrack or anything, but Jai Herbert should not get cut from the UFC because of the vicious competition they put in front of him. I am in the business of going with Jai Herbert against decent competition. Just not when they put him through murder, like through hell against some of these top level elite fighters. But going back to Allen Hooker here, let's not forget, Hooker had Allen rocked. He almost flash knocked him out and that would have just changed the whole narrative of things. He could have just stayed at 145 if he won there, if he actually like knocked him out. But yeah, I'm glad this was the outcome for the betting side of things and for actual just real life scenarios, because I don't think Hooker should be in that division. They already have way too many killers, and if he struggled like that against Allen, what makes you think he can even survive 10 seconds against Max Holloway?
Beautiful, beautiful. I could have said it better myself. So we'll move on right
Mhm.
from that to the main event. Now, I just want to say this before we get into it. I think this was the most impressive performance on the card. And that's hard to say with how the madness, let's just be frank, the madness that was this event. Dude, I was blown away by Tom Aspinall's performance. I think there was a little bit of the UFC jitters when he was fighting Arlovsky. I think he really looked across the cage and was like, "I'm really fucking fighting Arlovsky right now," and that makes sense when you're someone that age, growing up in the division. When you're fighting a guy like that, I was talking to Eric Betts fights about the Barboza.
The man.
Yeah, that's my dude, man. He's the goat, man. I just want to say too, the most eloquent man on the mic. Like this dude, he got it together. But I was talking to him about that matchup with Barboza and Bryce Mitchell, and he was saying like for him to be able to deal with looking across the cage and seeing Barboza and not having that fear, like that's a fucking skill. Like that isn't a something you just figure out. You need to be able
Huh?
to do that. And I thought Tom Aspinall's leap in performance in this fight compared to that fight had a lot to do with that. I think on the feet he outclassed him. Like I did not expect that at all. I thought he would land strikes, of course, but to be out in front of him and everything he did, to be fast and twitchy, I like to call it, and sort of bringing him in and then countering, and the way he landed those takedowns, like I think he's a three-tool fighter, and I didn't think that about him before. I thought he was forced into that position and then was able to get the choke. No, I think his grappling is freaking legit, and it needs to be watched out for after this performance because even though Volkov is known for being taken down a lot,
Mhm.
I think he's shown a good ability to get up, and that while he was able to do it once, that really wasn't an option towards the end of this one. And dude, like I can't get it out of my head just how much Tom Aspinall looks like Frank Mir. So so I always sort of bring them up
Yes.
together because he looks like his son. Like he could be his son. But what I love about his game is he's just a modern MMA fighter. Like he has all the tools. I think someone that can take him into later rounds and really draw out. I think that's where the questions lie in his cardio and being able to do that for multiple rounds because that's a very energy taxing style with the way
Mhm.
he moves, with the way he got those takedowns, etc. But just blown away by his performance, man. Super dominant and cashed as if he was a plus 600 favorite. Oh,
Yep.
minus 600.
Yep. Exactly. Looked like a minus 1,000. This is what we expected from Tom Aspinall in the earlier rounds. He was always known to be like the quicker fighter, the volume puncher. What we didn't expect is him to take Volkov down and submit him. Shout out to my brother here because he shouted Aspinall by submission at plus 650, and he cashed that. So props to him. But going against someone like Volkov, who is proven in the division, who has fought the who's who and the best of the best, um, and just putting on a master class of striking to start the round like that, it looked like he was just punching the bag. Aspinall was just unloading on him. Everything landing super accurate, which is just really impressive, especially at that heavyweight division to do that while moving around so quickly and just dealing with the slight range advantage for Volkov really well, going in and out, feints, those takedowns, and then to top it off with the submission. Wow, wow. I couldn't have been more impressed from Tom Aspinall, and then to call out Tai Tuivasa at the end, which I think would be a banger of a fight. Man, I if that fight ever formulates, slightly Aspinall. You heard it here first.
Slightly, you're crazy. I will bet the farm on Aspinall after this performance. I think I hope that they don't make that fight because I like prospect fights. Don't get me wrong. I think they do a lot for the sport. But you got to give him his shot. Like you got to capitalize on what Tai Tuivasa's got going on right now, and I think you give him someone like Cyril Gane, and that's a tough matchup too. Let me make that clear. But I feel like
better Aspinall.
It, you think so? I disagree with that. I really feel like don't get me wrong. I'm high on Cyril Gane. He got Fighter of the Year from me last year. A lot of people were like, "What the fuck?" when they saw I said that. I don't care. I gave him my Fighter of the Year last year. But the only reason I disagree with that is I feel like after seeing the Ngannou fight, obviously it was competitive, but there's a lot of issues on the ground, a lot of issues, and most importantly, I think his style against someone that is at a power advantage, I think his style really doesn't age well throughout the rest of the rounds. And in championship level fights, which he's going to get from now on, I think I'm going to fade Gane. So I'm interested on how these things play out. But that's my read. But let me hear some more on what you think about that.
So the reason why I compare him and why I said he's a better Aspinall, he has the speed, he has the accuracy, the activity. The biggest edge is the cardio, the strength. I'll tell you that. Just, I mean, you can tell by frame now that doesn't always translate into more strength, but obviously he has a bigger and better frame than Tom Aspinall does. The wrestling he can work on, but it's a lot harder to work on the cardio than the wrestling. I'll tell you that.
That's very true.
Oh, slight lean to Gane if that were to ever happen, a Gane Aspinall fight. But yeah, I just see him having a similar path to victory as Gane had throughout his rise. And we've seen Gane get a TKO in the third round, Derek Lewis. We've seen that. So we'll just have to see. I think that matchup against Francis exposed the holes in Gane's game, and I think he'll work on it and he'll improve because he also was my Fighter of the Year for last year.
Great minds, I'm telling you, great minds. I agree with you. I'm high on Gane. I just feel like I hope we get this matchup because I'm gonna get you back on, and we're gonna do this again, but for the fight, and that'll be awesome. So I hope that plays out now. But I agree, though. I think that Tai Tuivasa, Tom Aspinall fight would also be a great fight for as long as it lasts, because I don't think that one will last more than 2 rounds. So yeah, honestly, either one of those guys, whoever you sign them up to freaking fight, I'm watching because I'm really high on Tom Aspinall now, especially after this performance, and on Tai Tuivasa.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I couldn't have said any better. You hit the nail right there. It's two exciting fighters, and the heavyweight division is changing slowly from predominantly power punchers to people who are a little bit more versatile, a little bit more active, rather than looking for that one power shot to end it all. It's like an evolution on Stipe's game.
Yeah, man. So moving on to this week's UFC card, which honestly, at first I was like meh about it, but the closer it gets, I'm actually pretty excited about it. So the first fight we got up, Luis Saldana coming up against Bruno Souza. I'd love to hear your take on this one, and of course, let us know if you got any action.
So both these guys, mostly decision fighters. Just looking at it on paper, Bruno Souza, the type we saw him in his last fight against Baghdasaryan. Really, no output at all. He took the beating from Baghdasaryan pretty well. A lot of people were surprised that he even lasted. But Souza is a type of fighter that you don't, from a betting standpoint, you don't really want to bet on just because of that low output. Very good on the floor, though. On the mat, he is a submission specialist. Like, he can go from submission to submission. He's known to be very high level jiu-jitsu grappler. But on the feet, which I think is where this fight is probably going to take place more often than not, he just doesn't throw any output at all. Compared to Saldana, I mean, I've seen a little bit of this guy where he throws, he has decent boxing, um, decent power, nothing too crazy. The one bet or the only bet that stood out to me in this fight is fight goes the distance. And yeah, that's the only way I can look. Let me see what they have it at right now at the live odds. Actually, I mean, if you want to squeeze out a little bit more, not value, if you want to be a little bit more on the safe side, over 2.5 is at minus 220 right now, which I think that should be closer to minus 260, 270. So yeah, that's the only way I can look at the moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, funny enough, when I first so this is definitely my bias. I'm not gonna lie, bro. When he came into the UFC, this is gonna be a deep cut right here. You're probably gonna be like, "What the fuck?" But Jordan Griffin was one of my like favorite fighters when he came into UFC. Like I was like,
Mm-hmm.
this guy. Not that I thought he was gonna be good, but I love watching him fight. So when I saw Saldana fight him and sort of control the fight the way he did and prevent the takedowns, I definitely was like, well, this guy might be someone to look out for then. And then that Austin Lingo fight really changed my opinion on that entirely. Like it sort of reminded me, obviously, that I need to check my bias a little because obviously the levels aren't there. Just because he beat someone that I really rate and I like. So I tend to agree with you on this one. I think if your if your bookie has it, which most don't, I think you might even be able to squeeze out a little, a little third round submission for Bruno Souza, just in case. We haven't really seen. Obviously, he's been in some tough spots in his UFC career so far. So who knows? Maybe that's something that could be eked out. I ain't doing it. I'm just throwing it out there. But for this fight, man, I would say this is one of those fights where I'm not confident either way, so I'm kind of just gonna stay away from this one. I tend to think, like you said, activity really matters in the UFC and MMA in general. So that definitely has me leaning Saldana, but at the same time, um, we'll only know until after. That's really how I feel about this one.
Uh-huh. Couldn't agree with you more there. I mean, a lot of the fights on this card are going to be analyzed in a similar way where there's always the fear of the unknown, lack of fight experience, fight tape on some of these fighters just because they're lower level. And not to say that in any disrespectful way, it's just the truth. But yeah, on to the next one. We have
Who are you picking? Just so that I make sure I write it down. You got
on
Saldana as well?
this one. You know what? I'm gonna have to go with Saldana, but not a heavy lean at all. I'm not gonna be betting this fight unless I take that fight goes the distance.
Got you. Good call. And random question: whenever you're doing props like that, are you going full units, or would it have to be like? Is that something you sprinkle on?
Um, it just depends on confidence for me, whether it's a prop or whether it's a lean onto a fighter side. This one I'll probably parlay it. There's a lot of good parlay pieces on this card, similar to UFC London, but not too heavy or too chalky. So yeah, I'll probably parlay it with someone. I haven't decided who yet.
I can't wait because I know at least one of your parlay pieces. I'm gonna shock you and be picking the other guys. I'm
Okay.
excited for that one. But
Okay.
next up, Mateos Nicolau coming up against David Dvorak. I'm very pumped for this fight. Like anyone that says flyweight's a bad division, they smoking that shit because this division is stacked, and there's a lot of good fighters that not a lot of people are aware of. And I think both of these guys fit that bill. I really am. I'm gonna come out with my bias off the top. I love Mateos Nicolau. I think he's a really good fighter. I think he is a lot more controlled than you see from a lot of fighters at flyweight. I think the scrambling nature of that division, he sort of goes against it in a lot of ways, which I think is always interesting when you see a fighter sort of anti the mold of their division. At the same time, David Dvorak is looking really good, man. He's looking really good. So this is a tough matchup. Um, I feel like experience wise, obviously, um, the edge is to Nicolau just based on the level of fighter he's faced in the UFC. I would argue potential wise long term, I think Dvorak might have a little bit of a higher ceiling. But I think where they are right now in their careers, I think I'm going to go with Nicolau in this one, and probably confident in him sort of easing into a decision through leg kicks, jabs, and keeping him at distance. So that's my play on this one. What are your thoughts on this matchup?
Hey, we're on the same side here. So I like Nicolau in this fight. Strength of schedule is huge for me. Whenever I analyze a fight, I look at strength of schedule first thing. And when Nicolau has wins over Tim Elliott by decision, Manel Kape by decision, that although it was split, I think he won it. Felipe Efren, decent, also by decision. That raises a lot of eyebrows. I mean, those aren't easy wins, especially those last two. His only loss is to someone who was very grapple heavy, and that is not Dvorak at all. Dvorak, on the other hand, finished 3 of his last 5 fights, 2 by submission, 1 by knockout. I just don't know about just the level of competition that he's faced there. When you fight people like Manel Kape and you fight someone like Tim Elliott, as we saw Tim Elliott beat Tagir a couple weeks ago, Tim Elliott's no joke. So he'll give you a run for his money. And for Nicolau to survive that and to come out with a win, not just a split win, it was a unanimous decision. It holds a high regard to me. Dvorak has a 2-inch reach advantage from what I'm seeing here. Nicolau has a 1-inch height advantage, but that doesn't really factor in too much. Yeah, I'm going Nicolau here, probably by decision.
Yeah, man. And I think this is going to be win or lose. I feel like this is the turning point for David Dvorak. I think a lot of people are going to know who he is, and even if he takes a loss in this one, I think it'll really only up his level at this stage of his career, which is what I love about MMA. Man, you don't get one L and then get shipped to the bottom of the prelims, so that's always good. But
Yep.
yeah, no controversy in this one. We can move on to the next one. We got Jennifer Maia coming up against Manon Fialho. This is probably top 3 fights on this card for me. Like, I'm super pumped for this one. And it's not even because I think it's going to be competitive. I love Fialho. I think she's very, very good. I think what shocked me the most about her game is her clinch game. I always was very excited about her striking, but her level of clinch, she really reminds me a lot. And I hope this isn't a casual thing to say, but she reminds me a lot of a young Joanna Jędrzejczyk, with the way she sort of is able to collect the clinch very well, and keep opponents framed out in a way that they're not sort of able to fight for easy takedowns. So this matchup is tough though, man. I want to be very frank about this. Going from Jessica I to going to Jennifer Maia, that's a huge jump. Especially when you see in clinch scenarios, in grappling scenarios, she was able to survive and have some very brief moments against Valentina Shevchenko. Um, I this one, I know who I'm picking. I 100% know I'm going with Fialho, but at the same time, I think there's a lot of room for some dangerous spots and some trouble, especially if Jennifer Maia really gets top control for multiple rounds. Like, I think that's when we're really going to find out how her get up game is, because we haven't really seen that or been given the opportunity to see that, because she's very good at keeping on her feet. Um, so man, I'm excited about this one. I am pumped. I just feel bad for Jennifer Maia to a certain extent, because I thought she came off that fight against Valentina looking very, very good, and now they're giving her just one of the toughest tests in the division. So fun matchup for sure, though.
Definitely, definitely. And I'm on the same side as you here. Just looking at the records here, 19-8-1 for Maia and 8-1-0 for Fiorot. Jennifer Maia's lost 3 out of her last 5 fights, 2 of those being to Caitlin Chukagian and 1 being to Valentina, as we all know. Now, the one fight that I could see, there's sometimes where I can picture fights from the past, and kind of pave a way for what's to come in the future. A fight that I think is gonna look identical to how this one's gonna match up on Saturday is gonna be Jennifer Maia against Caitlin Chukagian. Fiora, we know, is mainly a striker, really solid striking. And when Maia fought Chukagian, I mean, we haven't really seen any grappling at all from Caitlin Chukagian. It's mainly just volume punching, volume punching. And I just think Fiora just dominates Maia here. Unless it gets to the ground, I feel like Fiora is going to look, I hope I'm not wrong by saying this, but she's probably going to look like a -1,000 here.
That's a
if
good
she's
show.
able to keep it on the feet. So definitely, I already have a parlay with Fiora in my betting slip. It's Fiora and Curtis Blades, not to spoil anything for later, but heavy lean to Fiora. I'm not sure if anyone's going to be surprised by that due to her being the -400 favorite right now, but yeah, that's all I gotta say here. It's just yeah, Maia has the advantage on the mats with her black belt in jiu-jitsu, but I've just never seen the wrestling from her to go with that black belt. Like, it's one thing to be a black belt, but it's another thing to be a black belt that can grapple and wrestle really effectively. So I just think she's gonna down Maia with the striking pressure.
Yeah, man, that's a really good show. And funny enough, what really sort of freaks me out about this matchup is, like, I was thinking about this hard before we got on the show, and I'm like, is there a way that Jennifer Maia could really win this? And immediately I'm like, yeah, she could bum rush her over, get a takedown, end up in those spots. But then the more I thought about that, I think I really need to give respect to Fijo's strength. Like, I've seen her outmuscle a lot of women at this division already, and in a way that doesn't really fit her frame. Like, I think that's something that stands out to me whenever I'm watching fighters. If you see them being very physically aggressive and their frame doesn't particularly look like they should be able to do those things, I'm like, yeah, they must be freaky strong for their size. And I think she's one of those gals. So funny enough, when I first heard the line, I thought it was pretty wide, but then the more I thought about it, I'm like, I would never feel comfortable putting a dog shot on Jennifer Maia. So it makes it work. Even though I feel like at this point of her career, this being her biggest test, that's why I'm like, the line might be a little wide, but at the same time I'm like, yeah, it's not wide enough for me to make a shot. If it got like +600, maybe I might sprinkle a couple bucks or something. But yeah, definitely going with Fijo on this one.
Yeah, you
So
and me both looking at that wide line in the beginning. I was like, maybe it's a little too wide, and then I slowly started looking at tape and like, I guess it's warranted.
it's where it needs to be. Yeah,
Yeah.
legit. I I love. Listen, it's weird that I'm gonna say this. I follow Jennifer Maia's career since when she was in Invicta. I love her as a fighter. I think she's very perseverant, which is, let me be frank, a trait that is needed in women's MMA, especially when it comes to the sort of physical advantages that
Uh-huh.
you're seeing now with the change of the guard in the division. I feel like technically, um, this fight is on like, there's a huge mismatch technically on the feet, and that I'm interested to see if we find out that there is a mismatch on the ground. I don't think there is the way we think there is, but that was funny. But
We'll
yeah,
have to see.
should be
Yeah.
cool. Should be cool. So next
Love
up,
it. Love it.
Aliashkab Kizriev coming up against Dennis Tuluin. That's good luck to the commentators tonight. That's that's all I got to say on that
Just call
night.
him Dennis.
Yes, sir. Just call him Dennis. Don't even try it. What are your thoughts on this matchup, man?
I feel genuinely bad for what's gonna happen to Dennis Tulin this Saturday. They're they're
Parlay.
they're straight up feeding him to the wolves. If any of you guys have already watched tape on Kizriev, some of the most nasty ground and pound I've ever seen, and period. I'm not saying like from a lower level fighter making his debut. Period. He has ground and pound like no other. He has the Dagestani wrestling style and mean, nasty ground and pound, kind of similar to how Khabib used to bring people down, but raining elbows, like kind of Curtis Blades does it, and he's knocked so many people out with that. Really solid striker as well. Um, man, quote me here. Round one, Kizriev KO or TKO.
Nice.
He's
What's the?
also a
Do they
parlay
have a
piece.
line on that?
It'll take me a second to pull it up, but it's probably going to be something closer to -110, somewhere along those lines, because it's similar to how Pavlovic and Abdulrahimov was touted to be last Saturday. I mean, we got it. I
That's
think
true.
this is very similar, and I think it'll happen probably a lot faster. Tulin 10-5 going up against 13-0 Kizriev. They're both from Russia. Kizriev just obviously the more experienced fighter. We saw him get a submission and rear naked choke in Contender Series, his last outing. And then if you look at the last 4 wins after that Contender Series, 3 of them were TKO, KO, ground and pound. So you know what this guy wants to do. And I think he's going to have no trouble. He's going to pass this test in flying colors.
Great shouts, man. When I first saw Kizriev was when he fought Pahyaris, and it wasn't even live. Like I saw the highlight after, and I'm like, holy fuck! Like if my bookie actually played lines for Dana White's Tuesday Night Contender Series, hook me up. If you know somewhere I could bet on those fights, hook me up. But literally when I saw that, I was like, yeah, this dude's gonna destroy this guy, and that's exactly what happened when I saw he was matched up on that show. Yeah, man, I agree with you 100%. I'm gonna be very honest with everyone at home. I don't even know who Dennis Tulawin is, and I agree with you 1,000%. So I leaned on you on that one heavy, but I'm going with you as well.
Yeah, it's just very very clear to me the path to victory, and I don't like Tulin the way he moves his feet around, the way he defends wrestling. It's not good. And Kizriev is another parlay piece, and I'll mention when the fight comes around who the second piece of that parlay is. And we talked about this before. Usually my parlays are 2 to 3 fighters at most. I don't like going for those DGen 5-6 fighter parlays. Although last weekend it would have worked in my favor, but more likely than not, it won't. So yeah, I'm doing mainly 2 fighters this weekend.
And I learned my harsh lessons with doing that as well. So probably gonna keep it towards 3, but I get a little ballsy.
You
I like a
chose the
couple
right event.
legs.
You chose the right event, though.
For sure.
I'll give you that.
Yeah, except for picking against Paul Craig. But
Yeah.
we'll act like that didn't happen. This next fight
Oh
coming
no,
up,
it didn't.
man. This is also up there for one of the fights I'm most hype
Uh-huh.
about. Um, Chris Gutierrez coming up against Dana Batgeri. Man, first of all, I just got to start on the left side of things. I'm a huge fan of Chris Gutierrez. I'm a big fan of Factory X in general as a camp. I think they're very well trained, very disciplined, and they get good corner advice. I think that's a performance enhancer, bro. Like if you're watching these fights and you're listening to the corner and you're observing a lot of these sort of comeback wins, they shouldn't really be that big of a surprise to you, especially from Factory X fighters. That's why in certain performances, like for example, Anthony Smith versus Glover Teixeira, I was just like Anthony, please just listen to your corner, bro. Like they're telling you everything you need to do, and you're straying away from it. But at the same time, Chris Gutierrez as a fighter, let's get into that. His strength, in my opinion, more so than anything, obviously, is just his brutal leg kicks, calf, shin, thigh. All of it gets torn up by this guy. His kicks are extremely fast. He's one of those guys where actually I don't cringe when he throws kicks first. That's how fast he is. Because usually once I see naked kicks, I'm like, oh, here we go. This guy's about to get tagged. But not with Gutierrez. He's lightning fast with those kicks, and he disguises them well with his
Mhm.
blitzes. Like he doesn't even have to throw punches. He blitzes forward and then throws hard kicks, sort of running into them. I'm a really big fan of his style because it's another one where you don't really see guys fight the way he does. Like you watch him fight and you know it's a Chris Gutierrez fight with
Mhm.
the way he lands those kicks. I've seen him welt up a couple different people's legs in a bad way. But man, on the other side of this one, he got a tough hill to climb, man. Dana is a beast, and I knew he was good when I first saw him make his UFC debut. But lately, he's just been impressing in a way that I didn't expect. Frankly, I feel like he's really coming to his own, especially when it comes to his power. I'm gonna say this off rip right now. Look at that by decision line because I think regard what to go the distance because I think that's really big in this one. I think Dana is really going to try to settle in, especially with Gutierrez fighting style. I feel like it's going to be hard to pressure him the way Dana likes to pressure people when he gets finishes, because of how elusive he is. So look at that uh goes the distance prop, please. But for me, man, I went back and forth on this one initially. I sort of was leaning Chris, and then eventually I'm like, yeah, I'm definitely gonna pick Dana here. But at the same time, I won't be surprised at all if it's super competitive and it really comes down to the third round. Not because, like, I think first round is gonna be Dana's no matter what, personally. But I think the wear and tear of Gutierrez's style could really even things up towards the latter end of the fight. I'm pumped for this one because I think this is a big test for both of these guys. And I feel bad a little bit for Gutierrez because damn, give him a favorable fight every once in a while. Like he's been fighting a lot of really good fighters lately. But you heard everything I got to say. I'm going with Dana here. What's your
Okay.
thoughts on this one, man?
Here's the thing. As you mentioned, Chris Gutierrez is known for those vicious calf kicks. Uh, what's the nickname they gave him? The calf something along the calf destroy the calf stealer, something along those lines. You could find on his socials. But we all know his game plan. He tries to slow people down with those calf kicks. To me, if you want to be very accurate in betting this fight, if it goes the distance, this is going to be Gutierrez's fight, in my opinion. If it goes the distance, then I think Dana doesn't game plan well enough or doesn't follow his game plan as well as he thought he did. Because as the fight goes on, those leg kicks are going to wear more and more and more. And Dana just has no power to even throw anymore. We've seen it. Dana leans heavily on his front leg for those power shots. Now, I'm still picking Dana. Vicious KO power. Let's just start with that. He knocked out his last three opponents. And then if he's able to check some of those kicks from Gutierrez, I think he'll be fine. But I've never seen him check kicks. So that's my issue going into later rounds. I think if Dana wins, it's going to be either round 1 or maybe early round 2 KO. Gutierrez, just to note this, he has not faced a good striker, or at least as good as Dana. And a lot of people are bringing this point up to where Gutierrez has never been knocked out before. Now, if we look at Dana's last fight, he fought Brandon Davis, who has never been knocked out before until he fought Dana. Got absolutely vicious knockout. And I was on Dana there too. So I can't help but go with Dana here. That one point I made about Brandon Davis, his last fight, where everyone mentioned that he didn't get knocked out, and he faced Timur Valiev before he faced Dana, and we saw Valiev can crack. Still didn't get knocked out, and Dana is just that guy. I think he gets it done. I'll shout, and if you want a prediction, it's going to be a round 2 early KO.
Nice.
That's where I'm going with it,
Dude. I loved everything you said, but I got to rebuttal you here with this one. The reason why I'm feeling like it goes the distance is a real thing in Dana's favor is I feel like the Felipe Kolaris fight, I did not expect him to dig himself out of a hole the way he did. I just want to say Kolaris has a historic chin. If you ask me, like the beatings that he takes in every one of his fights, he's not going to be along in, for a long time in the UFC, just because of the way he takes punishment on a regular basis. But that fight really sticks out to me, because I feel like in order actually the more I'm kind of talking myself out of this, but to a certain extent that fight sticks out to me because I feel like towards the latter half of the fight, um that activity with the kicks really did wear on Chris Gutierrez. So I'm interested to see how that plays out. But I agree with you 100%. If you're betting by KO, of course you're going with Dana, and probably in those first two rounds. So
Mhm.
great shouts. It's interesting. We're 5 fights in, and we got the same exact bet sheet right now. So this is interesting.
Pretty much. Pretty much.
Yeah, man. So next up, Sarah McMahon coming up against Carol Hossa. Um, I'll let you break this one down. How you feeling about this one?
I only have one sentence to say. It's Rosa by decision, and I'm gonna drop the mic there.
Wow.
Uh,
Wow.
Sarah McMahon is decent. She's shown to have some like success on the floor with some submissions, but Carol Rosa is going to be the bigger fighter in my opinion here. 15-3 record for Carol Rosa, 12-6 for Sarah McMahon. Just for those wondering, Rosa right now is sitting at a -220 favorite against, and the comeback is plus 180 on McMahon. I just don't think McMahon should even be fighting anymore. She's 41 against Rosa, who's 27. She's going to be a lot way younger fighter here, and it's going to show. It's just going to be a lopsided fight to a decision for Rosa, and that's my second parlay piece with Kizriev.
I like it. I like it a lot. Now, I know you saw my face. So you know what that means. I'm still picking Carol Hossa, but I think she's gonna finish the fight. I think her activity at this weight class is good against any fighter, but against Sarah McMahon specifically, I think that really comes to bear, especially towards the latter half of the fight, where Sarah McMahon sort of got out her takedown attempts already, and you start seeing the effects of that energy output. I It's a shame, man, because I really I really rated Sarah McMahon early on in her career.
Mhm.
I just thought she got some bad matchups, but
Very
age
bad.
catches up to you big. Yeah, age catches up to you big, and at 41, against a young stud, like let me be honest about this. Top five jacked women in MMA, right? Like off the top of the head, like she is stacked, bro. Like
Tyler Santos #1.
yes, sir. Yes, yes, sir. Her muscles are insane. I rate her very highly. I think moving forward, initially when I first saw her fight in the UFC, I actually felt the opposite way. I was like, she's a hoss, but at the same time, how well is that going to hold up? But later on in her career, she really convinced me that she has that output, especially in later rounds as well. And with that frame is fucking crazy. I don't know. Somebody go test those Brazilian fighters. That's all I gotta say. We need USADA over there ASAP. But yeah, my heart is with Sarah McMahon in this one, but I'm also picking Carol Rosa probably to get a TKO in this one. On the feet against the fence. Like that's what's gonna happen. She's gonna get swarmed against the fence. So if this happens, I'm clipping it and posting it on Twitter. Let's get it.
I couldn't agree with you more.
All right, man. Next up. So this one right here. I personally feel that they did my boy Neil Magny dirty. It's Neil Magny coming up against Max Griffin. While I get why Max Griffin deserves this spot, I get why he deserves a matchup of this caliber. At the same time, I feel bad for Magny because he was actually one of the people in the running trying to get a fight against Hamza Chimaev. While I don't think that fight would have turned out well for him,
Oh no.
um, yeah, not at all. But I do feel like he deserves to be on that upper echelon of the division versus fighting someone, in my opinion, who hasn't shown that level yet. Um, I feel like his career has been filled with a lot of matchups just like these, where they're giving him the guy that isn't necessarily young per se, but sort of newer in the latter half of the division. And these are the guys that he really puts a stop to. Not, I don't think he's going to finish him here. I think we're going to see a lot of clinch control. And um, the only way I'll see a finish, honestly, is if Max Griffin is really pushing hard in the first two rounds and then he sort of gasses out. I think he tends to have some really hard third rounds in his career. I'm also a fan of Max Griffin as well. I think he has overperformed my expectations for him entirely. So that definitely plays into this one for me. I feel like if Max Griffin ends up winning, it's gonna be like, I should have known almost, but I just haven't rated him in that way yet. Uh, I don't know, man. A lot of things stick out to me in this one. I'm ultimately going to be siding with Magni here. I think this might be another one that you could potentially bet to go to the distance. I feel like this one is probably going to be a decision. I'm a big fan of Magni, man. Let's go. Let's go, Neil Magni.
You couldn't have said it any better. And I was about to stop you when you said a younger fighter. I'm like, Max Griffin is older.
Yep.
I'm
Yep.
like, what? Looking at this topology page, yeah, he's 36 and Neil Magny's at 34. Here's the thing. Magny has been proven and he's been battle tested. Their UFC has been disrespecting him with these gatekeeper fights, man. It's just not fair. It's not fair, like point blank simple. But yeah, just the way he wins this fight, he's gonna be grinding these fights out on the cage and on the floor with this dirty boxing, as we've seen. He's gonna come out here with 7 more pro fights, so that's gonna play a huge factor than Max Griffin. He's also been more active than Griffin at about 3 fights per year. So that just shows that he's not as injury prone, or he just doesn't like to. He likes to keep going. He doesn't want to stall. Versus Griffin, where he's coming off maybe like 1 to maybe 2 fights a year. Uh, Magni has 4 inches of reach, so that's going to help him out with his dirty boxing and the clinch. I just think he outclasses him almost everywhere here to a decision. I agree with you on that. So Neil Magny, I think, is going to be a solid parlay piece as well. I haven't had anything on him yet. Looking at different angles on this card so far, which leads me to maybe parlaying him with that fight doesn't go to distance with the fight goes a distance in the Souza fight. So we'll see. I'm gonna keep my eye out on that.
Great shouts. I just want to say real quick, let play a little game with me here. You're in Max Griffin's corner. What's his route to victory? What are you training? What are you trying to implement in this fight?
Don't let Neil Magny be the aggressor. Neil Magny has shown when he's fighting off his back foot to not be as effective. Not saying he's not effective at all, but that's his weakness. There's some fighters that absolutely love being on the back foot and just being counter punchers. That's not Neil Magny. So be the aggressor. Probably impose some sort of wrestling, but just control time. Against the clinch, either way, he's not going to win it. Even when Magny's against the cage, he's going to be throwing those elbows. So stay away from Neil Magny as much as you can, unless it's on the floor. Because, yeah, Magny has some decent ground and pound, can get you to the floor every once in a while, but it's not his game. But yeah, that's what I would say.
I agree with you a lot. I think his jab coming downhill is one of the best jabs in MMA. I love Neil Magny's jab.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, I disagree with you on something. I feel like Max Griffin needs to avoid wrestling in this fight. And the reason
Okay.
is because if you get Magny up against the fence, you better get that takedown. Not
Yeah.
because Magny's a great wrestler, but just he's going to reverse that position on you. He does it to everyone. Like he literally does it to everyone. He has a hard time, especially at range, defending those takedowns. I agree with that 100%. Like in the middle of the cage, I would say train leg kicks this entire camp and just stay rushing in and punctuating your combos with leg kicks. I feel like that's a big problem for Neil Magny. And if you keep him on the back, like you said, if you keep him on the back foot but towards the fence, I feel like that's in a way where he wants to be. Even though it doesn't necessarily
Mm-hmm.
benefit his style, I feel like Neil Magny tends, especially when he's fighting a wrestler, he wants to be up against that fence. So don't give him what he wants. Don't let him draw you into that clinch battle. Just punctuate with leg kicks. Stay on the outside, but not too far out, and you should be fine, in my opinion. So I'm excited for this one. If he could, honestly, if Max Griffin, like I said, if Max Griffin pulls this off in any fashion, uh, let alone like dominantly on the ground, I would be super surprised, and I'll have to start thinking about this guy differently. He's
Mm-hmm.
growing out his hair for this fight, so who knows? Maybe there's some power in the main. But yeah, Neil Magny all the way. We're riding it. And
All
next
right.
up, so let me get this straight. Yeah, all on the
Better
same
not
side
cry.
so far. All on the
Slava Claus is coming to town.
yes, sir. This Mark Diakase versus I'm not gonna try it. Slava Claus. Um, t- I want to hear your thoughts on this one first. How are you feeling about this fight?
It's so tough. It's so tough. I'm a big fan of Slava Claus. I watched him since before the Contender Series fight. Always, I've known this guy's gonna have some sort of breakthrough in the UFC just based off of that striking, man. He's a solid striker, very accurate, very fast. They might have done him dirty here. And contrary to a lot of popular belief, I think Diakise has what it takes to beat him. Now, if you look at Slava Claus's last fight, I will only refer him as Slava Claus, just FYI. If you look at Slava's last fight, he fought Dakota Bush, and Dakota Bush took him down pretty easily. But the one thing we saw is Slava's get up game is pretty decent, but we're talking about Dakota Bush here. He's not the greatest wrestler. But Diakise has fought better competition, so that's one thing. High level competition we're talking here. Uh, even though he's failed a couple of those tests, it's fine. He wrestles a lot, and I was shocked when I was looking at some of these numbers, shooting like almost 7, 8 takedowns a fight, if not more. And Diakise, I mean, he has some pretty average, maybe below average striking defense. So if he's not able to take this to the floor, then yeah, I will say Slava Claus will get this by KO. I think the game plan is take him down to the floor and keep him there. Because on the floor, on the mat, I don't think Slava has enough experience there yet to overcome Diakise's wrestling. Now, if he does, I'll get to him. He's shown massive improvements, and then also coming out of Team Alpha Male, I could see why and how he made those improvements that quick. But yeah, give me the dog here. It's dog or pass, and Diakise is at a plus 160 right now, so I'll take that.
I really like it. Are you gonna make a bet on this one? Curious.
Yeah,
Nice. Good
I'll throw
luck.
for a
I will
cent.
say that. Good luck. And this is why I agree with you 100% on your analysis. Like I think Diakase should be a favorite in this fight. But there's a big X factor. And that X factor is I feel like Mark Diakase has everything, all the tools physically. Like I feel like he should be a much better fighter than he's played out to be so far. I feel like a lot of his issues lie in game planning and finding a right way to game plan. I feel like in a lot of a lot of ways, multiple times in his career, I'm like upset, screaming at the TV, like, why don't you just do this? Why are you doing that? Um, I think even his corner can't rein him in because they, for the most part, those guys at ATT, they tell these guys the right things, and I think the reason why he stood around so long in the UFC is because they know and see that potential. I feel like tool set wise, if this is the UFC video game, he would be a top 15 fighter. In my opinion, I really believe that. I think he's that level of athlete. The Team Pacquiao knockout always sticks out into my head. John Goodwin was also on the call on that one. He just mobilized him. That was beautiful, beautiful. But um, I would never in my life put money on Mark Diakase. I'm gonna make that very very clear, and I'm trying to talk you out of this one. Um, but just because even in close fights, he ends up in tough spots and puts himself in bad spots because he like you said he goes for those takedowns very heavily in times where he shouldn't, and then he relies on his striking in times where he shouldn't. Um, this is a tough one for me. I honestly feel like I won't be surprised either way. Like I really won't. But I'm going Slava Claus here just because I cannot trust Casey at this stage of his career. Um, and it's sad because I feel like he was definitely one of those guys I was really rooting for early on in his career. just because I saw the potential. I mean, a lot of those things stand out on the tape in every one of his fights. But it's the total package in MMA. And I mean, there's a lot of questions on Slavaklaus's side. So this analysis could definitely come back to bite me. But at the same time, I feel like the aggression and the sort of stick to itiveness that Slavaklaus has versus the scatterbrain approach. Like I'm pretty sure that early on in this fight, in a way, I feel like Diakese likes being everywhere, but doesn't put himself anywhere. If that makes sense, like
That makes sense. Yeah,
he
I know
will
what you're saying.
he on from outside he has really good kicks, but he'll never keep himself at range when it's good for him. So it's just so hard for me to trust him. But yeah, give me Slava Klaus here. That's my pick on this one.
Yeah, I see. In situations like this is where it's like dogger pass for me. So I'm either betting Diakese or I'm passing. I'm just watching the fight and enjoying it. I'm pretty certain I'm going to take that dog money because I haven't taken a dog in a little bit, and I think this is the right spot. I'm not surprised if I'll pass though, because I like Slava.
Gotcha. Yep. You love to hear it. Next up, this is another
I've seen the dance.
this is another one of those fights that I should not be this excited for. But bro, I am pumped for this fight. Ilia Latifi coming up against the warrior that we do not deserve, Alexei Oleinik. I just want to say
Oh man.
shout out to you ready for this one? You ready for this one? Shout out to the Whamma fight pits. Do you remember that? Bruh. It was a fucking moat. This man was fighting in a moat way back in the day. Obviously I didn't watch that live, but I went back and watched that event because I'm like, nah, I gotta see what the fuck this looked like. Hilarious stuff. I really love Alexei Oleinik as a human. I just hope he gets everything he deserves in this world. I think he's someone that overachieved times 50 to his sort of
Uh,
athletic potential. I think everything he's earned in this sport has fucking worked for. Like you have to get extremely good at strangulation to get away with a lot of the things he gets away with.
Ezekiel
Um,
choke, man.
dude, and just the shit that
You
he
guys don't even know what an
does.
Ezekiel choke is.
Yeah, man. How could you? How could you? He's been riding horses his whole life. How would you know about Ezekiel? But literally, my main thing about this fight is everything about this tells me to pick Ilir Latifi. Like 100%. I would not bet on Alexei Oleinik here, but but there's a heavy but here. Um, two things. I think I think Ilir Latifi is another one of those guys that has a hard time putting it together. Two, I feel like Alexei Oleinik got sleepy power. Like, don't sleep on his power on the feet. I feel like if a lot of people exchange with this guy, and don't get me wrong, it makes sense. His striking doesn't look good at all, but there's been a lot of times where he's cracking guys you would think would be easily outclassing him on the feet. Obviously, I'm picking a little Latifi here, but that's not where my heart is at all. War Alexei Oleinik.
Yeah, I'm on the same side. I'm not betting this. I refuse to bet this. If you decide to bet this, good luck because you're gonna be very frustrated even if you win. Because I mean, the way I see Latifi winning is by wrestling. That's his game pretty much. Wrestle him, take him to the floor. The guy has no neck; he can't choke you. That's it. it goes shoulder, trap, head, and that's
Dude,
it.
you're so right.
So yeah, I just think Latifi is the rightful favorite here at 160. I've even seen it go up to like 190 some places. I'm like, you have to be nuts going 190 here. Like both of these guys are getting up in age, especially Oleinik, obviously, but it's going to be hard to even think about placing a bet here. Maybe if I'm on like one of those props where I don't think is going to it has a good chance of happening, but I still want to take it for the value, maybe I'll parlay that with Latifi. But as a straight pick, oh, you best bet I'm not taking that. I would rather take my money and spend it at the grocery store, like at Target.
Yeah, dude, I'm telling you guys right now, live betting for this fight is the way to go. If we get to
Yes.
the second round, bet the farm on Latifi. Like 100% bet the farm on Latifi. I wish that I was in another spot of my room right now because I'm looking at a hoodie that I have. It's a primitive hoodie. It has the thing on it, and that's who Latifi is, bro. This dude is just bricked up from the fucking socks. He does not make sense to me. Like as a physical specimen, he reminds me of Zangief in all of those ways from Street Fighter. Ilia Latifi is so strange, and that's why I love this fight because both of these guys are fucking strange. Let me leave it at that. Real quick, one other note on Ilia Latifi, something that I would never forget in my life, and I wish someone else in the world would do at the UFC level. Remember that choke against Travis Brown? Where he went
Mhm.
sideways with the scissors on his legs, and you could see how uncomfortable that was and the way it was sort of affecting that position. Alexei Olenek does cool shit every time he fights because he doesn't, frankly, belong in there athletically with a lot of these guys. So he needs to pull out the cool shit. So yeah, I'm gonna be in awe of this fight no matter which way it goes because it's
It's
gonna
gonna be
be
fun.
dumb. It's gonna
It's
be
gonna be
dumb.
fun.
Yep. Okay. Now, in my frank opinion, I think this is the main event. I don't care what anyone else says. This is my main
And
event. This is a number one contender fight. How is this the fourth fight
how
down
is not
from
a
the main?
co-main?
Dude, at least, yeah, they disrespect the flyweight division way too much,
Big time.
way too much. I mean, both of the fights in these card on this card is really good, but let's get into the analysis for this one. Askar Askarov coming up
Oh man.
against Kai Kara France. What are your thoughts on this one, brother?
I have a case for both. I have a case that Kai Kara France is a really good striker with bricks for hands, and his takedown defense is pretty good. But I don't think he's faced anyone as good of a grappler as Askar Askarov. Even though Askarov shoots a lot, if you look at the numbers, he's not that accurate with these takedowns. He's 11 for 39, which is a little bit less than 30% success rate. Um, Kaikar France is proven on his feet. He's that last knockout against Garbrandt. I mean, yeah, I get it. Glass chin Garbrandt. We all know the deal, but he's still fast. All of these guys in the flyweight division we expect to be fast, but something about Kara, he has that speed powered in with with a combination with the power. And I don't know if Askarov has faced as good of a striker in recent memory. I know he had that draw with Brandon Moreno, but that was a bit ago. Uh, I can justify the price tag for Askarov if it was around like minus 210, 220. That's where I think it should be, and that's where it might get. A lot of people might see value in betting Kai Kara France as that plus 270 underdog, which I'm one of those people. But if that line starts creeping down on Askarov to minus 200, that's where I'm pulling the trigger. So at the current line, I will have to go with a small sprinkle on Kai Kara France. I don't think I can justify that for Askarov. I do think Askarov is a future champion of this division, though.
Dude, great analysis. I love it. I'm a big fan of Kai Kara France. When I first saw him fight, and this was on Tough way back in the day, I was like, this dude's gonna be champ. Like I was legitimately convinced. I was like, this dude's gonna be champ one day. Obviously, you would need to get Demetrius Johnson somewhere else, and that's exactly what they did. So I was like, yeah, man, this guy's gonna
They
be champ
traded
one
him for
day.
Ben Askren.
Still the dumbest thing ever. He's gonna be fighting again soon, by the way, in a mixed rules fight, which is
Isn't it this?
crazy.
It's this Saturday, I'm pretty sure, isn't it?
Friday. Yep, Friday.
Friday. Yeah, it's gonna be nice. It's
Friday
gonna be
morning. I'm excited. That card is fucking stacked, by the way.
fun.
We should be breaking that down instead of this. But dude, dude, I can't I really can't put a finger on this one. Like I agree with you 100%. I think ultimately I'm picking Askarov here. I'm a fan of his story, the fact that he fights out there without proper hearing is something to admire for
Mhm.
anyone. Um, I think be a little bit easy with what you said about his takedowns. I think that the strength of competition, especially in the UFC, really skews those numbers. I think he's fought guys that are really good at preventing those takedowns, and I don't think Kai Kara France is on that level, on that Joseph Benavidez level, even Brandon Moreno level of scrambling. I don't think he's anywhere near that. So I feel a little bit more heavy towards Askarov than I think you do. But at the same time, I agree with you. Like I feel like there is value on a sprinkle on Kai. Like this would be one of those fights where I would make a parlay that involves Askarov, and then I'll make a straight play that literally will cover the entire parlay.
Uh-huh.
I like doing that a lot because I feel like that makes a lot of sense in a fight like this. Because it, if I'm picking a surefire fight to win, most of the time I'm not putting Askarov in a parlay unless I have the option to do that. So man, I'm excited for this one. I think well, first of all, I hope that we get to see some early Kai Kara France success. Um, I don't think he's going to be able to get a knockout early, but I think there's going to be some problems early on gauging that distance and especially dealing with that fresh speed.
Mhm.
If there is, I don't think it'll be first round. I think it'll be a round two TKO for Kai, but I'm going to Askarov here, and I agree with what you said, man. I think he's on that level. He deserves a title fight, and if he ends up losing here, uh, give Kai the title fight, and no matter what
Oh yeah.
happens, I'm riding with Kai, no matter who the hell the champ is at the moment. Real quick, I have to ask you this because we're coming to a close on this analysis. Who do you think wins the fourth fight between Brandon Moreno and Davison Figueiredo?
I've always been a Figueiredo guy. Always. Bet on him every single time.
Mhm.
And it's made me money. He was an underdog a couple times, so it was good. Yeah, I take Figueiredo there. Just
Figgy
more all round skill set for me. I like fighters like that.
Figgy weirdo. That's what I
Mhm.
love calling him.
God of War.
Dude, I I agree with you. My heart definitely says Moreno though. I'm a big Brandon Moreno guy. Also from that
He's
same
so
season of
nice.
Tough. Funny enough,
Uh
same
huh.
season of Tough where I first saw him fight against Pantoja. That was a fucking war, by the way. Check that out if you want to
Yeah.
random. If you're running on a treadmill and you need some motivation, put on Oscar. I mean, Brandon Moreno versus Pantoja, the first one in the Tough House. That fight was awesome. But anyway, if when it comes to this matchup, I think no matter what, if the winner of this doesn't face whoever wins that fourth fight, criminal. Like I don't care how it plays out. We can't run
Yeah.
the same fight back 5 times, bro. We can't do
I
that.
mean, see, I see why they're running it 4 times just because one of them was the draw. So
Yeah.
I agree with that. I think it's needed because they have one win and one win. This is the actual trilogy fight. So I'm very very excited and looking forward to this one.
Now, can you remember? Do you think that was a deserved draw?
No,
Neither do I. Do you remember who you thought won that fight?
I scored it Figueredo.
So did I. Phantom low blows and things like that. Played a
Very
big part.
very
Played a
tough.
big part in that one. But I'm a like I said, I'm a Moreno fan. I still can't believe that he won the way he did. Like
Mm-hmm.
to this day, landing that straight shot and put him down, and
That's
he fell
crazy.
like dude fell like he got shot. Like he fell fast. Like at that weight, you usually don't really see that.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, he felt like he got
Like
shot.
a die
Um,
Herbert kind of fast.
yeah, exactly. That's rough. One real quick, beautiful video I saw on Twitter this week. Jai Herbert and Ilia Tuporia in the back, sort of giving each other props. I loved seeing that.
Oh really? I
Check
didn't
out
see
that
that.
video. Check out that video if you could catch it. But anyway, back to the business at hand. We're both on Ascar in this one, right? That's your official pick.
Um, if a gun was pointed to my head, yeah.
Okay. Thankfully, we don't got no guns to your head on this show.
Thank you.
Matt
Thank you.
Brown coming up against Brian Barberena,
Woo!
the ultimate zombie fight. That's what I'm gonna call it. Please give me your thoughts on this one.
The hometown warrior. Matt Brown is gonna win this by KO.
Sir, yes,
Call me
sir.
my wizard hat. I need to get a wizard hat. Put it on. Yeah, I think Matt Brown takes this. Um, man, Barberena, when he first started up in the UFC, he looked good, but that back surgery he had kind of, I felt like it took everything out of him. He couldn't. I mean, he wasn't even supposed to be fighting anymore. I'm glad he is. I mean, he's still doing what he loves to do, but the doctors told him he had a very slim chance to even do this anymore. And it kind of shows in his last couple fights, just very lackluster effort, low volume, and man, Matt Brown, even though he's 41, that last fight, he showed that he could still crack. That knockout, and I was truthfully here, I was against him when he would fight Diego Lima. I had Lima.
Those leg
Cracked him
kicks. That's what I
clean.
thought.
And I think he still has it in him. I think he can still get the job done. And the price tag isn't bad at all. If you wanted to just go on him straight up, it's just at a minus 110. It's near even. And I just think that he's going to out volume Barberena here. So give me Matt Brown. I'm taking Matt Brown by KO here.
Let me be real about this. And I don't say this often, but now that I said it, it's going to be Francis Ngannou versus Derek Lewis. There's no way this is a boring fight, right? Like there's no way in hell this is a boring fight because both of these guys at some point are going to get rocked, right? Like we could agree with that just with how the Jason Witt fight happened the most recently.
Mm-hmm.
Even when he's having a hard time out there, I think Brian Barberena finds his way to find success in the octagon, which is insane. I think more so than anything, I agree. Obviously, everything you said on point, especially with the back surgery. Back surgeries on anyone is life changing, let alone
Mm-hmm.
an athlete. But at the same time, I think what really changed his career was the Vicente Luque fight. I think that
Yeah,
was a historic fight because of how it played out and the grit and determination he showed. But at the same time, I really think that's why he's hesitant now because he got really battered in that fight in a
that's what
lot
led
of
to his
different.
back surgery.
Really, really
Yeah.
okay. Dude, it was that was one of the craziest fights in UFC history, and I don't care what anyone says. Watch that fight back. I'm not capping here. That shit was crazy. And he's a Terminator, bro. Like both of these guys have that. And I'm a little worried about Matt Brown's body. I think he's always had a suspect body as far as absorbing damage to the body. But dude, Mark Coleman, Matt Brown in Ohio, like the place is gonna be going crazy for this fight. So that's why atmosphere, energy, matchup. This is fight of the night here. It has to be, in my opinion.
Fight of the night. Wow.
Hell yeah, dude. Hell yeah. I agree. I was surprised and shocked by Matt Brown's power, but at the same time, I feel like
You think it was a fluke?
not that it was a fluke. I don't think it was a fluke at all. I think when it comes in that matchup, he doesn't. If he wins, his by knockout. But I don't think he wins that fight as much times as he loses that fight, in my opinion. Obviously, that's how it played out. And if I'm not mistaken, I think Lima has since retired. If I'm not mistaken, I hope I'm not
Yeah,
speaking out of turn
I
on that.
believe so. I believe so.
Um, but and he's
He beat him
41,
so bad
dude.
that he
Like
retired.
age, yeah, literally, age catches up to people. And it happens at some point. There's a lot of old fighters on this card that don't look old. Like I
Mm.
feel like out of all the old guys on this card, the only one that actually looks old is Olenek. But yeah, man, this should be fucking amazing. And the reason why I think it's gonna be fight of the night is I think Askarov Kai Kara France is gonna be slower than Kai Kara France needs to get a win, if that makes sense, as far as the pace.
I don't know why. I feel like Diakise and Slava is going to be fight of the night.
It's gonna be round of the night. I'll give it that. I'll give it
Oh,
that.
okay.
But all right, next up, the co-main that does not deserve to be a co-main. Let,
At
let me
all.
get this straight. If they were gonna put a women's fight in this division in the co-main, why would you not put Fiaho in that spot at least? That
Exactly.
and she's
Oh,
higher ranked than any. I mean, Jennifer Maya is higher ranked than either of these other ladies, if I'm not mistaken. Doesn't make any sense to me. It's that that John Wood bias, I guess. They're liking it. They're
Exactly.
liking the change here for Joanne Wood. I just want to say I love JoJo, man. Like she's another one of those fighters that I became a fan of. Seeing her in the kilt, seeing what she does. I think her style is very unique. But over the years, I feel like she's really devolved as a striker and fighter. I think her output has seriously waned, and I feel like a lot of the times you see her in spots where you think she would have more success, and it just doesn't play out that way. I don't know if it's at this stage of his career it's more physical or mental. I have no clue. But given the fact that she's sticking to it the way she is, I tend to think it's mental, which I feel like she's one of those fighters like Mike Powell that like tears it up in the gym. Like she must be. Just her style of fighting is really like it leans to that. Like when she's on her P's and Q's and looking mean, landing knees, like she's she's up there on my all violence team at this division. But
Mhm.
at the same time, I feel like we haven't seen that come out in such a long time.
It's been a while.
That is really tough to sort of lean on that in any way. Alexa Grasso, on the other hand, is really fucking good, man. I really like that gym. Like they're doing such a good job.
Logo.
Yeah, man, they're doing such a good job. Irene Aldana's progression on top of Alexa Grasso. I feel like they're doing something right out there in Mexico. That's all I gotta say. But
Mhm.
at the same time, matchup wise, I think if this ends up becoming a clinch fight, 100% you start to lean towards Joanne Wood. I feel like there's a situation where we could end up in a slog fest a little bit and we end up more in the clinch than at range. But the
Mhm.
longer this fight's at range, I think Alexa Grasso looks dominant in this one. Watch out for those check hooks. I think if there's anyone getting a knockout in this one, I think it's Grasso and it'll be a check hook.
Yeah.
That's my call on this one, but I'm going with Alexa Grasso.
Yeah. I'm leaning Grasso here too. Probably not gonna end up taking any action on this fight at all. I just think Grasso has a better competition that's on schedule. She's younger, better UFC wins. But yeah, it's just a pass for me here. I like JoJo. I liked her in the past. She's just getting up there in age, and then we've seen what that does to fighters.
For
Um,
sure.
Even though we've capped a lot of fighters on this card specifically that are getting up in age, I just don't think it. This is the right matchup for her. So yeah, give me Grasso here.
Listen, we're over halfway through this episode and it's over an hour for sure. My girl doesn't listen to this. Alexa Grasso is on my top 5 in MMA. I just got to say it. I just got to say it. There's something about her. I don't know what it is. It's just there's something. It does it for me, bro. That's all I got to say. We'll move on with that.
Not Chris Cyborg.
Oh, top
No.
one, top one. You're crazy. The cake. Cyborg got the cake, brother. No, hell no, hell no. Anyway, we'll move on. This is getting off the rails. Curtis Blades versus why did this on my list? I wrote Chris Amir Connie. What the fuck happened there?
Nice.
Chris Dawkins,
Nice.
Curtis Blades. Now, I know you're wondering because I mentioned it earlier. There's a fight that I saw you were on that I'm on the other side of. And I 100% agree with you. This is a Mark Diakese situation for me.
You're breaking up just a little bit.
Got you. Thank you for the heads up. Thank you for the heads up. So it should be good now. I was just saying,
Yeah.
this is one of those fights where it's like a similar situation to the Mark Diakese thing. I really feel like Curtis Blades has all the tools to be a championship level fighter at this division. At the same time, I don't think he shows those tools often. Seeing the way Tom Aspinall dominated um, Volkov on the floor really changed my mind about Curtis Blades. And I don't know if that's a fair thing to say. Obviously, MMA math tends to make you look like a fool more than anything.
Hmm.
But at the same time, I just feel like Curtis Blades' style, he's shown that he can wrestle for 5 rounds. Like that's not a fucking question. So I'm not even worried about his cardio. I just feel like when it comes to landing damaging blows on the ground, he can do it. He's capable of it. But for some reason he doesn't double down on his ground and pound the way I feel he should. If he was like Kisriev that we were talking about earlier, if he was someone that really hunted those positions and really put in the effort that we think he can, because you train at elevation, dude, like you should be able to put out the output there specifically.
Yeah.
If he did that, I think he's 100% in that top three and not moving from the top three of that division. But I feel like he gets in his head a lot, and I feel like this is gonna sound like the stupidest thing ever, but whenever I see him chasing for takedowns, that's gonna happen the first 3 rounds. But after that, I feel like 100% Chris Dawkins is live in this fight. You might even want to do a live bet on this one if you're betting. Like if you're betting Chris Dawkins, put whatever you're putting on it, and then consider doubling down because I'm telling you, there's going to be an early part of this fight where Curtis Blades looks like the favorite he is right now, and then there's going to be a later part of this fight where Chris Dawkins starts having some success. Now, Chris Dawkins has not been tested in this way at all. So I could just be entirely wrong on this. But at the same time, I just feel like he has real power at this division, which for his frame, I'm gonna be honest, is one of those that doesn't really make sense. Like we were talking about with
One of those. Yeah.
Yoho. Yeah, he's one of
Who's
those
the
that
cop?
yeah, dude's a cop and in Philly nonetheless. You know, there was a couple late night Philly cheesesteaks on that beat, but at the same time, I just feel like he's really slick on the feet,
Mhm.
and I don't know. I really like his upside in this division, especially because he's still so young in it. I both of these guys, for that matter. I'm going Chris Dawkins on this one. I'm not going to put money on it, but that's my play, and it's more so because I can't trust Curtis Blades.
Gotcha. So now I know which piece you're going against me in. Here's the thing in this matchup. I think Curtis Blades ragdolls Chris Dawkins. And you know what? We might be seeing two different things here, but Dawkins hasn't fought anyone with this kind of wrestling background. Not to
Who is
mention, like,
there in this division that has this kind of wrestling?
exactly. So it's going to be a whole different game for him. On top of that, Curtis Blades is about 40 pounds heavier. So it's going to be a lot harder for him to get up. I feel like once he gets down, he's not getting up unless it's like just trying to cage walk, if that even works in the heavyweight division. It's just like a pure stylistic nightmare, wrestler versus striker, or striker versus grappler matchup, where the grappler is just that much bigger and that much better. And I honestly, I'm gonna have to disagree with you on that ground and pound, because did you see that ground and pound that Blades had against Junior Dos Santos? Oh my, that on its own shows how vicious he could be if he wanted to. It's been a while since we've seen Blades fight in general. Actually, I'm wrong. 5 months ago. It seems like he's not as promoted by the UFC. I'll tell you that. But when this guy's on, he's on. Blades also has the better strength of schedule. I got to give him that. Wins over Jairzinho, Volkov, Dos Santos, and I mean, Abdulrahima was not that big of a name to mention, but wins over guys like that. His only big loss is the one that was against Derek Lewis, which, hey, props to
and
Lewis.
the Ngannou fights as well.
Oh, they're probably missing that here. Anyways, yeah, they probably don't even have it on Typology. It's weird.
Yeah, I think he lost twice to Ngannou.
Really? Wait, let me check.
Yeah, Curtis
this.
Blades. He got knocked out in the first and then knocked out in the third, if I'm not mistaken. The first one was a doctor stoppage from a cut to the eye that really swelled up, and then the second one was a first round knockout.
Oh yeah, that was 2016. The eye.
That was, I think, Ngannou's second fight in the UFC.
Yeah.
That was a deep cut right there. I pulled that out of my back pocket, brother.
No, man, that was a good one. And then the other one was in 2018. Oh, they were just a little bit further down in the record. But yeah, I think that Curtis Blades passes this test with flying colors, warranting he might be another like minus 1,000 showing out here. So we'll have to see. But yeah, Curtis Blades is in my parlay with Fioro, as I mentioned before.
Nice. So man, this was super fun for me. I agree with a lot of the things you said. Real quick side note, they both fought and beat Shamil Abdulrahimov. And beyond that, I agree with a lot of the stuff you said. I think he's shown that, whether it's that Junior Dos Santos fight or the Alistair Overeem fight, I think he's really shown that he's capable of putting on amazing performances. But at the same time, I feel like he's another one of those guys that has a hard time putting it together on fight night, for whatever reason that may be. I'm excited for this fight though because I think it's gonna do a lot for both of these guys, even if it doesn't play out obviously the way I think it's gonna go. I think both of these guys are gonna grow from this fight in a big way. Now,
Mm.
we all wrapped up with Columbus, but there's a big fight card coming up 2 weeks after. So we're gonna do this in no tape. I don't know if you looked ahead that far, but I haven't. No tape on our side.
I
Let's do
have.
three. Oh, you have already. You're itching for this one then. 3 minute breakdowns. We're
I'm
not gonna go
waiting. Oh
deep
man, wait. Let me
deep
just
on this
pull
one.
up the. Let me go on the bout order here real quick. Okay, so you want me to go from bottom to top real quick?
Yeah, man. Let's go quick hitters right here. Let's go bottom to top. Quick hitters, like super
All right.
fast.
We're starting with Dricus Duplessis by knockout against Anthony Hernandez, round one.
Great
I'll give you
call.
that.
Great call. I don't know if it's gonna be round one, but I agree with that.
I'll give you Jairzinho Rosenstrike against Tybura Jairzinho for the win here.
I'm going with Tybura by WrestleFuck.
Okay.
I won't be
Okay.
surprised if I'm wrong, but
We have Kay Hansen against Pierre Rodriguez. I don't know how Kay Hansen's a favorite again.
yep.
Give me Rodriguez. I don't even know who she is, but give me Rodriguez.
10 times out of 10, I agree with you. 100%. Hey, those Brazilians are sneaky. What's up next?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Over here we got Vince, or I'm not sure if it pronounces it as Vince or Vink Pichel against Mark Madsen. You know what? Give me Vince Pichel here.
Uh,
I know Madsen wants to avenge his teammate's loss, but I think Pichel beats him.
dude, I agree with you 100%. I don't know why I thought he would be an underdog, but he's a favorite. Um, I don't know. Might want to take a look on Matson, in my opinion. But at the
Yeah.
same time, I agree. I do like Vince Purcell in this one.
Then we got Ian Gary against Darian Weeks. Conor McGregor 2.0. Give me a
I think
Ireland.
I'm gonna make it very clear. I think that guy sucks, and I think it's not gonna be this fight, but I think that's a fade for me down the line.
Upcoming fade.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
But I
just
agree.
definitely not Darian Weeks.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Give me Ian Gary in this one.
We have Julio Arce against Daniel Santos. Give me Arce here.
Yeah, I'll go
Probably
RC as
decision.
well. I just want to say this right now. I work right next to Tiger Showman's. I might get my ass in there soon. Just saying.
You should.
Hell yeah.
We got Mickey Gall against Mike Malott. Mike Malott, if I remember correctly, he is a fresh fighter out of Dana White's Contender Series.
Yep.
Give me Mickey Gall via violence choke.
I like that. I like that Dana White's Tuesday Night Contender Series fade. I'm fading Mickey Gall because he sucks. So give me Mike Malott.
Oh, give me Mickey Gall. We have Irene Aldana against Aspen Ladd. Give me a nap.
That was fucked up. I like that. I like that call.
It's gonna be a very slow fight, but
Yeah,
I'll take
100%.
Aldana.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I'm leaning Aldana, but I actually am gonna make the Aspen Lad pick
All
if she
right.
makes weight, if that fight exists.
Yeah, if that even happens.
Is that a featherweight or a bantamweight?
This one is at bantamweight.
Okay.
Next up, sound the alarm. Sound the alarm. Khamzat Chimaev against Gilbert Burns. Give me Gilbert Burns.
Wow, you're doing
Sound
it.
the alarm.
How dare you? How dare you?
From a betting perspective, I will take a plus 365 on Gilbert Burns.
I agree with you on that.
I'm
Numbers wise,
I
I agree with you on that. Now, after this fight is over, I'm going to say this right here with conviction. It's going to look like Hamza should have been a minus 500 favorite. I'm going Hamza here, and I think he hurts him multiple times on the feet before finishing him on the ground.
Okay. Okay. I like that.
That dude is fucking good, scary good.
Uh-huh. You're not wrong. Right after that fight, though, we have another banger. Kelvin Gastelum against Nasruddin Imavov. Give me Imavov.
Yeah, man. This one hurts my heart. I love Kelvin Gastelum, but I agree. I think Imavov has championship potential in this division.
Oh yeah, especially after that last outing.
That crucifix, baby. That crucifix, baby.
Dirty, dirty. All right, next we got Mackenzie Dern against Tisha Torres. I'll take Dern here. too
Oh
much
man,
grappling.
I see that. I'm going Tisha Torres here. I think she'll keep it on the outside.
Okay.
Mackenzie Dern striking is really rough.
Yeah, it's rough. She definitely has to take it down to the ground. Co-main event: Peter Yan versus Aljamain Sterling.
My main event. Let me make that clear.
Yeah, you kind of already know where I'm gonna go here. Of course, Peter Yan, the rightful champion.
I love the way you said that.
By destruction.
I like that. I like that a lot. I'm gonna shock the world right now. I'm a big fan of Peter Yan. Let me make that straight. I think if he wins this fight, we're talking all-time level bantamweight champ. Have you seen the photos of Aljamain Sterling leading up to this fight?
Mm-hmm.
This dude looks he's always jacked. He looks fucking on another level for this one. Um, I'm going Aljamain Sterling here, and the only way he wins is by round one submission.
Ooh. No way.
Peter Yan's one of my favorite fighters. I'm going with
He is my favorite fighter.
Oh, he is? Nice, nice.
Oh man.
Hey, Corey Sandhagen is mine, so fuck that guy. How about that?
Oh my god. All right, next and last but not least, main event, we got Volkanovski against Korean Zombie. Give me Volkanovski by knockout.
Wow, really? I'll go Volkanovski by decision. I think nobody named Max Holloway is beating Volk. That's it.
Okay.
Bro, we did that. How quick was that? That's under 8 minutes, baby. Come on,
Very
son.
quick. Very quick.
Come on, yo. Who does it better than us here at the MMA Archive? I just want to say again, shout out to you, man. This was super fun for me. We had a lot of technical issues. We had to break this up across 2 different days, 3 different recordings, but it don't matter because we get it done for you guys. Please give them your handles so that I could take us home after.
It's Wizz MMA on Twitter. Give me a follow. Quality MMA content. You're gonna see me interacting with Chris a lot. So be ready for that this upcoming fight week, especially because we have a couple of clashing points here. But yeah, very excited, very happy to be on here again. Looking forward to the next one.
Yeah, man. Thanks. I really appreciate you coming on, man. I really love the rotation I have going on here at the MMA Archive. I feel like real soon we're gonna have to do a 3-man show on this podcast. I think it'll be really, really cool. But once again, thank you for coming on. It's always a blast. You already know, guys. Make sure you check me out at Negrong MMA on Twitter, as well as Chris Negrong _ on Instagram. Getting real close to 250 followers. I've been at 247 for a couple days now. Come on, help the guy out. Help the guy out. We're almost there. But besides that, I'm probably gonna be having another episode of the old school MMA Archive where I actually look at old school events next week. Hey, I'm studying for the LSAT, guys. Be nice, okay? I got a lot going on right now, but really excited to cover UFC 14. It's a banger. There's a lot of good fights on that card. Randy Couture is already in the UFC tearing it up, so exciting stuff to watch. That history of MMA. But at the same time, as always, make sure you follow the brand OTS Media Co. on all platforms, as well as OTS Media on YouTube. It's been so cool to see the level of interaction we've been getting, especially lately. We're inching ever closer to, I think it's 400 on Instagram, as well as getting our subscriber count over 100 on YouTube. So please check us out. We got a whole bunch of things going on: basketball, football, MMA, the works. We're trying to get some baseball stuff going too. So that should be interesting if we could get people on that. But shout out to the brand. Shout out to all of you people there that make this fucking worth it. I just want to say right now, the fact that I've made connections that feel like are going to last a long time in this industry already. And I just started doing this within the last year. Means a lot to me. Thank you again, Marty, for everything and coming on.
Of course.
Looking forward to having you on again. Y'all have a good one. Good luck with your picks. Have a good night, y'all.
Good night, guys.